Chapter 21:47. There were two reasons why the golden immortal experts of Great Wilderness Sect and Limitless Demon Sect would participate in this auction. One reason was to confirm each other's identities, and the other reason was to discuss their next move. As for Yang Chun, he came here for the Hongzhuang Jade Heart. Now that he got what he wanted, he didn't want to stay any longer. Too much wealth was revealed at the auction, so he needed to disappear for a while to calm down the recent uproar. However, it was not Yang Chen's original intention to have two more monster race beauties. But Madame Bai insisted, so Yang Chun had to go along with her wishes. You can't figure out what I want them for, right? Madame Bai took the initiative to bring this up when she was chatting with Yang Chun in the Dragon Palace. Yes, madam. Yang Chun had always been respectful in front of Madame Bai, answering all her questions. Other than Madame Bai's identity, he basically told the truth. Do you know why it's called the Hongzhuang Jade Heart? Madame Bai was wearing a veil, so he couldn't see her expression. But from her voice and the curve of her eyes, he could tell that she was smiling. Yang Chun shook his head. This thing was something that could only be found by chance in the immortal world. He had only heard of it, but never seen it or studied it. It was normal that he didn't know about it, because the Hongzhuang Jade Heart will always be a seedling without a special method of cultivation. It will never mature. Madame Bai didn't think there was anything wrong with this. Since Yang Chen didn't know about it, she explained, this cultivation method can't be separated from beauties. I'd like to hear more about it. Yang Chen's interest was piqued. It was strange to say that the cultivation of medicinal herbs couldn't be separated from beauties. To cultivate it to maturity, the seedling must be placed in the heart of a beauty and nurtured with the blood of a beauty. It will take at least a few thousand years for it to mature. Madame Bai continued. On one hand, this plant looks like a heart. It's red, so it needs the blood of a beauty to mature. This is why it's called the Hongzhuang Jade Heart. Even though Yang Chun had seen many things in his two lives, he was still shocked by this explanation. Using a beauty's heart's blood to irrigate, it was truly unheard of and unseen. Most importantly, if this thing is used by human cultivators, then it must be watered with the heart blood of human beauties. If it is used by a demon like me, then it must be watered with the heart blood of a demon of the same clan. Madame Bai didn't hide anything and explained everything clearly. That's why I could only ask for the two girls. Hua Xing was also a flower demon, so she could be considered a demon of the same race as Bai. What puzzled Yang Chun was Hu Yuxian. She was a fox immortal, an animal creature, and a flower monster plant creature were two different things. Yang Chen could understand Hua Xing, but what about Hu Yuxian? Bai Hua Xing. Yang Chen didn't understand, but Xing's Hua flower demon Qi. Yang Chen's energy was Hua spirit Yang, IMS. This little fox has a special ability. She can absorb people's vital energy and transfer it. Madame Bai smiled. How can the little flower demon withstand it for a long period of time? Fox immortals were called fox spirits, which was in line with Madame Bai's description. However, Fairy Hu seemed to be a little too lowly, didn't she? Could it be that Hu Yuxian, who was rumored to be as pure as ice and as clean as jade, was so? But Yang Chun had seen Hu Yuxian and Hua Xing. The two girls were clearly chaste. Even if Yang Chun didn't understand this, he knew that if the demon race wanted to send the two girls to him, they would definitely not send two broken flowers. They had to be chaste. What do you know? Madame Bai rolled her eyes at Yang Chun. Then, she said proudly, Who do you think I am? My eyes are sharp. I can tell with one look that the relationship between the two girls is not ordinary. Can't the two girls maintain their chaste bodies when they play? These words made Master Yang, who claimed to be knowledgeable, drop his jaw in shock. The two women were actually a fake couple. It was no wonder that the flower fairy Hu Xianzi had been very good friends until Yang Chen's rebirth in his previous life, and almost never separated. But where did Fairy Hu go to absorb so much vital energy? Yang Chen couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Even though Madame Bai was his elder and he had to side with her, it didn't seem appropriate for the little fox to lower herself just for this reason. The little fox is talented. Even though she is a girl, she has a pure yang nature. Madame Bai suddenly said such an inexplicable sentence which made Yang Chun a little puzzled, to be able to practice double cultivation with the little flower monster. That person definitely won't accept Peony, Rose, and the others by my side, unlike you. But if they cultivate like this, they won't last long and will face many difficulties in the future. When Madame Bai said this, how could Yang Chun not understand what Madame Bai meant? She wanted the maids by her side to also practice the Tao of dual cultivation. In truth, Madame Bai's idea surprised Yang Chun. She wanted to harmonize yin and yang with the maidservants, but at the same time, she didn't want them to lose their vital yin. Of course, it was also because he coincidentally met Hu Yuesian that this happened. Since they only need blood, why not let Big Sister Peony and Rose do it? Yang Chun thought for a moment, then asked again, I can guarantee that I have enough pills to replenish vital energy, so that they don't have to worry about lacking vital energy. How can it be so easy? Madame Bai sighed. The beautiful hearts of the spirit realm can't withstand the vital energy of the immortal realm. Madame Bai and the maidservants were all cultivators of the immortal realm. Even though they were in the spirit realm, the spiritual energy in their bodies was still the aura of the immortal realm. Therefore, the young seeds of the beautiful hearts of the spirit realm could only be cultivated by the flower demon of the spirit realm. At first, Madame Bai was worried about how to cultivate them, but when she saw Hua Xing'er and Hu Yuesian, and after a closer look, she discovered that Hu Yuesian had outstanding talent. It seemed that all her problems had been solved. It was fortunate that Madame Bai could think of so much. This made Yang Chun feel a little uncomfortable, at least when he saw Hua Xing'er and Hu Yuesian. But when he thought about it, Hu Yuesian really had a good life. Madame Bai's maidservants were all outstanding beauties. If Hu Yuesian was a man, she would have fallen into the crowd of beauties. She would have endless luck with women. Of course, if she was a man, she probably wouldn't even dare to have such thoughts. If Madame Bai or any of the maidservants found out, she would probably die a horrible death. Perhaps this was fate. The heavens couldn't bear for a beautiful heart to remain in its infancy forever, so they arranged this series of coincidences. It seemed that Fairy who was indeed born with endless luck with women. Chapter 2148. Anyway, Yang Chun wouldn't refute Madame Bai's decision. He could only do his best to help. He would give her whatever she wanted, do whatever she wanted, and support her unlimitedly. However, Yang Chun wasn't sure if Hua Xing would be willing to do this. At the same time, Hu Yuesian wouldn't agree to his endless luck with women. Luckily, Madame Bai would take care of the two of them, so it shouldn't be much of a problem. If Madame Bai couldn't even handle the two little flower demons and little fox from the spiritual realm, then she wouldn't be Madame Bai. After Yang Chun understood the ins and outs of the situation and divided the work with Madame Bai, the mysterious Sky Dark Sea Shuttle had already flown a long distance with the Dragon Palace. Now, Yang Chun was flying at full speed. He had to get back to the sect as soon as possible. Reincarnation Valley, Great Wilderness Sect, and Wuji Demon School had already sent experts from the Immortal Realm down. He didn't know how the mysterious Sky Sect and the other sect were doing. One thing was for sure, the Zhao family was in big trouble this time. With so many golden immortal experts that had passed the Xian immortal tribulation, the Zhao family would be greatly weakened no matter how powerful they were. However, he didn't know how the experts of the Zhao family had arranged, and if they had already prepared everything for the immortal realm. Yang Chun had to get back to the sect as soon as possible. If necessary, Yang Chun had to rush to the demon space to watch the show. If he didn't make it, he would definitely regret it for the rest of his life. In his previous life, he didn't have the opportunity or the ability, but now it was different. It would be a pity if he missed it. He had to make it. While Yang Chun was on his way, young Master Lu had recovered a little for a short time. A casual attack from a golden immortal expert had severely injured his sea of consciousness. He was bleeding from all his orifices and almost turned into a fool. This guy knew very well that there was an expert teaching him a lesson. It was very likely that it was the expert who had been defeated by Madame Bai's powerful formless killing curse. However, Lu Wuji didn't dare to complain. The opponent was too terrifying. His invisible killing curse was useless against him, but he could kill him as easily as killing a chicken. Young Master Lu was very proud and humble. He had all sorts of good reputations, but he had never been called a fool. Since young Master Lu wasn't a fool, he naturally didn't dare to do anything to that terrifying master. But now he was very angry, and there was no place for him to vent his anger. He could only put his idea on Yang Chen's head. Of the 3 formless killing curses that were released earlier, 2 were easily shattered by the 2 terrifying experts. However, the last one was left behind and successfully entered the other party's sea of wisdom. The guy who was hit was Yang Chen, whom young Master Lu hated the most. If Yang Chen used to be young Master Lu's potential rival in love, then now he had directly become a deadly enemy who snatched his love away. Yang Chen actually took away the Flower Fairy and the Hu Fairy. He already had so many wives and concubines. Why did he still want to forcibly occupy the 2 fairies? The combination of the flames of jealousy and the fact that he did not dare to resist after being taught a lesson caused the flames of anger to burn higher and higher. Young Master Lu was already on the verge of collapse. After being taught a life worse than death, young Master Lu, who finally recovered, the first thing he wanted to do was to launch the formless killing curse. No matter what, Yang Chen must die. Even if he didn't die, he had to be sick for hundreds of years to dissipate the anger in young Master Lu's heart. Yang Chen was on his way when he suddenly noticed a tremor in his sea of consciousness. His mind immediately concentrated in his sea of consciousness, and then found the source of the tremor. It was the few thin spiritual awareness threads left by young Master Lu that were causing trouble. Those filaments trembled as if they were still trying to grow. Unfortunately, in Yang Chen's powerful sea of consciousness, this slightest tremor couldn't be hidden at all. Soon Yang Chen found a trace of curse in it, and with Yang Chen's knowledge, this curse seemed to be very powerful. Unfortunately, no matter how hard Yang Chen tried, he couldn't find the culprit. Even the actions of these cursed spiritual awareness threads seemed to be spontaneous, and he couldn't find any connection with the original owner. Yang Chen kept these spiritual awareness threads to find the guy who plotted against him. But now the situation made him a little disappointed. In this case, there was no point in keeping these spiritual awareness threads. Yang Chen planned to disperse them directly. Just as he was about to make a move, Yang Chen's heart suddenly moved. Since it was a curse, it would definitely not make people feel good. Now Yang Lan seems to be living a good life in the Zhao family. It seems that it is a bit cheap for him. It is better to send this curse to him. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness threads wrapped these strange spiritual awareness threads, and then directly wrapped these spiritual awareness threads around the spiritual awareness imprint of the great Free Demon Heart Sutra left by Yang Lan. Sure enough, as Yang Chen expected, when these spiritual awareness threads went around, they seemed to have found a way and disappeared in an instant. Yang Lan has been really proud recently. His previous opinions and previous tears have been rewarded handsomely. Several young masters of the Zhao family have been withdrawn, and it is said that they will go back to receive the majestic family law. Yang Lan himself has become an advisor of the new master. Basically, the master will discuss with Yang Lan about major and minor matters. This has made Yang Lan's status in the Zhao family rise. Many people flatter and flatter him. It can be said that he is proud of his success. He can see all the flowers of the Zhao family in one day. While he was proud, Yang Lan suddenly felt cold, as if there was some evil wind blowing into his body. Then the whole body was stiff, and the sudden pain of the whole body surged into Yang Lan's mind like a tide. Yang Lan couldn't help but scream out loud. This is all he can do now. His whole body was stiff, and he couldn't move. It seemed that there were countless knives scraping his flesh all over his body. Wasn't the so-called 1,000 cuts in the mortal world just like this? The Zhao family's children who have been following Yang Lan were shocked to see this situation. Someone immediately helped Yang Lan to lie down, and the other immediately went to report to the current master to make a decision. After a while, the master arrived with a few masters. After checking up and down, someone immediately found a clue. Young Master Yang is cursed by a master. The obvious curse breath was very easy to identify. The Zhao family had many masters, and they quickly determined the reason. In my Zhao family's important place, there are still people who can't curse young Master Yang. Check it out. The master was very angry. This level of curse must be close to be effective. It must be that someone inside the Zhao family had moved their mind that they shouldn't have. Under great anger, they immediately sent people to investigate thoroughly. On Yanglan's side, the master quickly helped. After a while, the curse was suppressed. However, no matter how hard these masters tried, this curse was always like a maggot in the tarsal bone. There was always a trace that could not be completely eliminated. This also led to a consequence that Yanglan would suffer this kind of pain every day for at least a stick of incense, and then it could be slowly suppressed. Chapter 2149. Yang Chun didn't know what would happen to Yanglan for the time being, but he was sure that he didn't have to worry about the curse. Those things all fell on Yanglan's head. As for whether it would affect the other master who was monitoring Yanglan, that was a matter that had nothing to do with Yang Chun. Madame Bai easily settled Hua Xing, and Hu Yuexian. He didn't know what method she used, but the two girls followed Madame Bai obediently. They temporarily replaced the positions of Rose and Peony that Yang Chun was familiar with and became Madame Bai's personal maids. Madame Bai was very happy that she had completed her task. After encouraging Yang Chun, she took the two girls to the Devil Realm again. The higher the cultivation of the two girls, the better the effect of nurturing the hearts of the people in red clothes. Madame Bai would definitely pay attention to them. Elder Wu Xiong didn't have to face Madame Bai, so he no longer felt pressured. He chatted happily with Yang Chun. However, Elder Wu Xiong was still a little worried because Yang Chun had revealed so many top-quality spirit stones at the auction. There's a little problem, but for what Madame Bai wants, I can't care about anything else. Yang Chun told the truth. Madame Bai was present at the time. If she dealt with it according to Yang Chun's usual steady character, she would definitely not be satisfied. So, she simply fulfilled Madame Bai's wish. Then you have to be careful these days. Elder Wu Xiong didn't know Madame Bai's identity, but he knew that Yang Chun was trying to please her. So, he didn't say much and just told him to be careful. He also knew how fast Yang Chun's mysterious sky dark sea shuttle was. As long as he could rush back to the sect in time, with the news released by the major sect and the means of Chunyang Palace, no one would dare to have any ideas about Yang Chun. Just when Elder Wu Xiong was still persuading him, Yang Chun sighed helplessly on this side. Some things really didn't need to be nagged about. Trouble had already come knocking on his door. The mysterious sky nether sea shuttle stopped in an instant. Before Wu Xiong could react, he saw 8 experts of the Dragon Clan suddenly rush out of the Dragon Palace. 6 of them were wrapped in a large mass of long red and green vines, like 6 fat multicolored cocoons. The one in the lead was Aolan. You guys don't have to make a move first. Aolan stopped Long Yuan and the other 5, allowing them to return to the Dragon Palace. They were not used to the dragon entanglement grass yet, so it was not suitable for them to make a move. Furthermore, Aolan was very clear on how strong the enemy they were facing this time was. If she was not a match for them, Long Yuan and the others would just be sending themselves to their deaths. Given Princess Aolan's status, Long Yuan and the others did not disobey her orders. They immediately returned to the Dragon Palace to continue. On the other hand, Aolai followed closely behind Aolan, looking anxiously in a certain direction. Enemy, Aolan asked Yang Chun. What is their background? Elder Wu Xiong still hadn't found any traces of the enemy. He was still shocked to see so many Dragon Clan experts. When he suddenly heard Aolan's question, he immediately reacted. There were enemies outside the profound Heaven Nethersea shuttle. Elder Wu Xiong was currently only an earthly immortal. Furthermore, the profound Heaven Nethersea shuttle did not belong to him. It was normal that he could not discover the enemy through the shuttle. However, Elder Wu Xiong did not undervalue himself. He only looked at Yang Chun, waiting for Yang Chun's arrangements. I'll go and take a look first. Yang Chun gestured for Elder Wu Xiong to take a seat. Then, he instantly vanished, exiting the profound Heaven Nethersea shuttle. The scene outside was no longer the familiar spiritual world. Instead, it was a foreign world. The spiritual pressure here was much higher than in the spiritual world. In any case, just a casual breath would fill one's lungs with spiritual energy. Yang Chun could instantly determine that the profound heaven-nether-sea shuttle had been suddenly sucked into a cave abode while it was flying. Based on the spiritual pressure of this cave abode, even if it was not tempered by the immortal world, it was at least tempered by an expert from the immortal world. Which senior from the Great Wilderness sect is it? Junior greets you. Yang Chun was not nervous at all. He bowed towards the void. To be able to keep up with the speed of the profound heaven-nether-sea shuttle and forcibly suck the profound heaven-nether-sea shuttle into a cave abode while flying at such a high speed, the person's cultivation was definitely much higher than Yang Chen's. He had to be at least a Xian Immortal or above. A cave abode related to the immortal world clearly came from the immortal world. Yang Chun only knew of 3 people who met this condition. The only one who would do such a thing was probably the golden immortal expert from the Great Wilderness sect, who had lost some face at the auction. Junior, you're quite smart. A familiar faint voice sounded. However, no one could be seen, which added an invisible pressure. But you're such a smart person. How could you make such a stupid mistake? Don't you know common sense not to flaunt your wealth? I have some cooperation with the Great Wilderness sect. Senior, you won't make things difficult for me, right? Yang Chun did not answer this question. Instead, he directly pointed out his cooperation with the Great Wilderness sect. In the face of a real golden immortal master from the lower realm of the immortal world, even if he could only bring his life source flying sword because of the lower realm and had no other magic weapons, Yang Chun was not arrogant enough to provoke him face to face. There were 2 advantages to pointing out their relationship. Publicly, the sect still had to cooperate with Yang Chun. Privately, Yang Chun was a junior. If the golden immortal expert wanted to deal with Yang Chun, it would be a typical case of bullying a junior. A normal person would basically consider these 2 reasons and would not make things difficult for him. This would also achieve Yang Chun's goal. This golden immortal expert of the Great Wilderness sect didn't know about Yang Chun. After learning about Yang Chun's identity from the Samsara Valley, he specially consulted the elder who accompanied him and found out about Yang Chun. To be honest, what he knew the most about the Zhao family in the lower realm was only the Zhao family. A few days later, he heard about the auction of Hong Zhuang's Jade Heart and rushed over in a hurry. He didn't even know about the most popular alchemy master in the spiritual realm, which was why the scene at the auction house that made him lose face happened. If he had known about it in advance, he would definitely not have taken out the few 8 revolution pills that he had concocted in a short period of time to embarrass himself. This junior named Yang Chun was really too surprising. Although he had never directly faced the experts of a Zhao clan, his shadow could be seen in several crucial victories. To the sect, Yang Chun was also a very important partner. The elder of the Great Wilderness sect who accompanied him had clearly told him that Yang Chun was an important partner. If it was not necessary, it would be best for him not to do anything that would destroy the cooperation between the 2 parties. Such a calm warning clearly showed his dissatisfaction towards Yang Chun. Of course, the golden immortal expert would not care about such a small warning. He was an expert who had ascended to the immortal world a long time ago. He was the most senior and most qualified elder in the entire Great Wilderness sect in the spiritual realm. Even the elder had to kowtow to him and call him ancestor. Why would he care about the words of a small elder? Chapter 2150. Being in the Reincarnation Valley, he naturally had to take care of the Reincarnation Valley's reputation. After a brief meeting with the 2 experts from the Reincarnation Valley and Wuji Demon School, who were also from the immortal realm, to confirm the next step of the plan, the expert from the Great Wilderness sect and the elder who accompanied him set out on their way back. When the 3 of them met, the 2 experts from the Reincarnation Valley and Wuji Demon School also vaguely reminded him to deal with the Zhao family and not to cause unnecessary trouble. Obviously, these 2 were also indirectly telling him not to cause trouble for Yang Chun. This golden immortal expert with the surname Feng was not a reckless person. He agreed on the spot, and everyone was happy. Seeing that he understood the big picture, everyone was very happy. After a grand reception in the Reincarnation Valley, everyone went home. The two experts from the Great Wilderness Sect also directly set out on their way back to the Great Wilderness Sect, going in the opposite direction from Yangchun. On the way back, Elder Feng drank and chatted with the elder from the Great Wilderness Sect every day, never leaving. Everything looked normal. At least no one in the spiritual realm knew that Elder Feng had a skill that no one else knew, the doppelganger technique. To put it bluntly, it was a simple method of controlling a puppet. It was just that this puppet was exactly the same as him, and even its aura was no different. The puppet was made by Elder Feng himself. Even in the immortal realm, very few people could distinguish between him and the puppet. The one drinking and chatting with the elder from the Great Wilderness Sect was naturally the puppet. As for Elder Feng himself, he had directly gone invisible and chased after Yangchun. After these days of rushing, he finally caught up with Yangchun's mysterious Sky Dark Sea shuttle. During the process of chasing, Elder Feng could not help but admire the amazing speed of Yangchun's flying magic treasure. He heard that when Yangchun was in the Foundation establishment stage in the mortal world, he relied on this magic treasure to escape from a late Great Ascension stage expert. At first, Elder Feng did not believe it, but now that he was chasing, he finally understood that the rumors were not false. Of course, the harder it was to chase, the happier Elder Feng was. This showed that Yangchun's shuttle was better, and the good things would soon not belong to Yangchun, but to Elder Feng. After making Elder Feng lose so much face, he still wanted to escape unscathed. How could there be such a good thing? No one in the immortal world dared to provoke him like this, let alone a junior at the Earth immortal realm in the spiritual world. Even if he had the support of a masked Xian immortal expert, he still had to die. As for the merit ring on Yangchun's hand, when he was in the auction house, he had scared away his spiritual awareness exploration. But later on, he also understood that since the other party had flashed the merit ring, he must have already guessed his origins. Such an important matter couldn't be easily known by an earthly immortal realm junior. Moreover, this guy wasn't a member of any major sect, and the immortal world didn't have the support of Chunyang Palace. It was fine to kill him as long as no one knew about it. Finally, after much difficulty, he managed to catch up with Yangchun's shuttle. Relying on the sect's immortal abode that he had hurriedly refined, Elder Feng easily took Yangchun and his Dharma treasure into the immortal abode. This time, only Elder Feng knew what happened in the immortal abode. Elder Feng's calculations were very good. There were no cultivators passing through this area, and the immortal abode that he had refined could not be discovered by the cultivators in the spiritual world. This also meant that Yangchun had disappeared quietly and would never appear again. When he thought of the scene of him being booed by so many people at the auction house, Elder Feng couldn't help but want to kill him, especially when he thought of the large amount of spirit stones that Yangchun had taken out. Coupled with the fact that he had seen the Dragon Clan shuttle, he was even more determined to get rid of Yangchun. Isn't it a little too late to remember the relationship between you and my Great Wilderness Sect now? Elder Feng sneered and slowly revealed himself. His prey had already been locked in a cage, so he wasn't in a hurry to kill it. He wanted to play with it first. Please forgive this junior for offending you. Yangchun's attitude was very humble, and he spoke with assurance and composure in front of Elder Feng. Of course, Elder Feng was a senior, so Yangchun had to give him some face. Things that could be resolved through negotiation, especially when facing a golden immortal expert. It was better not to make a move. If I have offended you in any way, please forgive me. Yangchun understood the situation very well, at least in Elder Feng's eyes. If this was before the auction, Elder Feng could swear that he would definitely like this kid who knew how to respect his superiors. Unfortunately, time couldn't be turned back. Therefore, there is only one ending for this lovable kid. Senior is doing something big, so I guess you wouldn't be bothered to spend any effort on this junior. Elder Feng didn't say anything, but looked at Yangchun with a teasing smile. Yangchun sighed in his heart, but still reminded him indirectly. Besides, I guess Senior doesn't want to disrupt our cooperation. Cooperation? You think you're worthy? You want to cooperate with my Great Wilderness Sect with just a few pills that anyone could concoct? You are overestimating yourself. Elder Feng sneered and scolded. Suddenly, The image of the sixth revolution, Lingji mushroom jade pill, concocted by Yang Chun, appeared in his mind. Just by looking at that pill, this kid's future in pill concoction would be limitless. At this moment, Elder Feng finally understood why he wanted to kill this kid. It was because of those pills. As the saying goes, people of the same trade are enemies. Since Yang Chun was so good at pill concoction, it made him, a pill concoction master in the immortal world, seem to be mediocre. This was pure jealousy, and at the same time, he had the intention to kill his future hope. However, Elder Feng didn't feel that what he did was wrong. The world of cultivators was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. So what if everyone cooperated? All the big sect claimed to cooperate with each other, but it wasn't the first or second time that they would secretly assassinate each other's genius disciples. Didn't they still cooperate with each other? This was the current situation of cultivators. If you want to blame someone, he could only blame this kid for being blind and bumping into him. Don't worry, no one will know where you went, and no one will suspect me. Elder Feng said to Yang Chun complacently, I should still be drinking with the elders of my sect. It's about time we arrived at the sect. There will be many people who can prove that I have never spent any thoughts on you. You are indeed skilled in pill concoction. I admire you for this. Elder Feng still used that faint voice to sentence Yang Chun to death. Out of respect, I will let you go a little faster. Do you have any last words? Only one. Yang Chun sighed his heart. Then he said loudly, Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. You want to kill me, so I will accept this karma. Chapter 21:51. Elder Feng from the Great Wilderness Sect doesn't seem to be such an open-minded person. Almost at the same time, two people from Wuji Demon School were talking. The one who spoke was Elder Chun, who accompanied the master from the mortal world. I agree. The master of Limitless Demon Sect, whose surname was Su, was leisurely sitting beside the table. Without using chopsticks, he picked up a thin slice of meat with his fingers and put it into his mouth. Then he crossed his legs and said slowly. Because he was still chewing, his voice was very vague. Then, in your opinion, will he cause trouble from Master Yang after this? Elder Chun asked with a hint of worry in his voice. With the identity of Master Su from Wuji Demon School, it was too easy for him to know the identity of the buyer who bought Hong Zhuang's heart at that time. As long as he asked, Samsara Valley would never hide it. Elder Feng from the Great Wilderness Sect also got the news. In fact, they both knew the identity of Yang Chun at the same time. It's very likely. Master Su grabbed a rabbit leg in his hand and chewed it with relish. After chewing for a long time and swallowing, he said indifferently, maybe he has already left. This. Elder Chun was still relatively close to Yang Chun. When he heard the words, he immediately frowned. The big bullies the small, and including our sect, all the major sects have sworn to protect the peace of the pure Yang Palace for thousands of years. Elder Feng's actions, isn't it breaking the rules? No. Master Su didn't seem to care about Yang Chun at all. Of course, he really didn't have a reason to care about Yang Chun. Killing Yang Chun and protecting Chunyang Palace at the same time is not contradictory, is it? Strictly speaking, it didn't violate those oaths. Even if Yang Chun died, as long as the sect kept Chunyang Palace safe, they would still keep their promises. After all, Yang Chun was just a cultivator, not the whole Chunyang Palace. Grandmaster Su. Elder Chun deliberated over his words, thinking about how to move this carefree Grandmaster Su. Master Yang has a deep relationship with our sect. One of his disciples is the son of our sect's leader in the mortal world. Whether it's in the mortal world or in the spiritual realm, we've worked very happily together. Do you think it's appropriate to extend a helping hand? Help. Grandmaster Su put down the bone in his hand that had been chewed clean and reached out to bring a plate of roasted suckling pig that was a little further in front of him. He picked up the pig's head and took a bite before asking, How can I help you? Didn't that Elder Feng want to harm Master Yang? Elder Chun smiled along. He had no way of dealing with this Grandmaster Su who was feigning ignorance. He could only make things clear. Why don't Grandmaster Su go through the trouble and save him? Save people. Grandmaster Su shook his head like a rattle drum. No, no, how would I dare? Elder Chun was astonished. What kind of powerhouse did the Great Wilderness School send down this time? How could the Grand Master Su of his sect not even dare to attack? In his astonishment, he had already asked the question. Grandmaster Su stopped tearing off the pig's trotter. After thinking for a while, he said, I reckon he's about the same as me. There's nothing remarkable about him. Since the other party's identity was nothing remarkable, it was most likely that someone had something on Grandmaster Su. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said such a thing. Elder Chun smiled bitterly. What are the higher-ups thinking this time? Why did they send a Grandmaster who had something on him? Wasn't this just delaying things? Moreover, wouldn't he be controlled by the Great Wilderness School in the future? If that was the case, Master Yang would probably be in trouble this time around. However, Elder Chun still held onto a glimmer of hope. He hoped that the spiritual realm elder from the Great Wilderness School would know what was good for him, and that it would be best if he could persuade Master Yang. If the other big sects were to find out that Elder Feng from the Great Wilderness School killed Master Yang, I'm afraid the Dao sect wouldn't let it go. When Elder Chun said this, he was also holding onto another hope. If Elder Feng was intimidated by the Dao sect's pressure and let Yang Chun go, it would also be a chance for Yang Chun to survive. If he insists on taking action, do you think that Junior from the Great Wilderness School will be able to persuade him? Grandmaster Su's words directly extinguished Elder Chen's last glimmer of hope. Or will he be discovered and spread the news when he takes action? Grandmaster, Master Yang's alchemy skills are unparalleled in the world. He has always worked well with our sect. Elder Chen still wanted to make one last effort. Moreover, he brought a lot of dwelling divine jade from the mortal world and saved many experts in the sect. You can't just leave them to die. Look at what you're saying. Even if I want to save them, who knows where they are now? Grandmaster Su looked at Elder Chun, shrugged his shoulders, and said helplessly, Moreover, even if I know where they are, do you think I would dare to save them? It seemed that martial ancestor Su's weakness was not an ordinary one. After Elder Chen laughed bitterly in his heart, he still clenched his teeth and decided to use a provocative method. Perhaps he could make martial ancestor Su fly into a rage out of humiliation and save him. Grandmaster, are you afraid of that Elder Feng? Elder Chun pretended to be curious and asked, If it's really inconvenient for you, then forget it. At most, our Wuji Demon School will act according to the Great Wilderness School's wishes in the future. Sigh. After saying that, he did not forget to let out a long sigh, which was indescribably bleak. I'm afraid of that Elder Feng. As expected, Grandmaster Su fell into the trap and directly slammed the table. Are you kidding me? That kind of trash is worthy of making me afraid? Then, Grandmaster, why don't you dare to save them? Elder Chun was overjoyed in his heart, but he pretended to be innocent and asked, Wait. Martial ancestor Su wiped his oily mouth and said to Elder Chun in a serious manner, Have we misunderstood something? Misunderstanding? No. Elder Chun imitated Grandmaster Su and spread his hands. Who do you want me to save? Grandmaster Su asked very seriously. The Chunyang Palace's Yang Chun, Master Yang. Elder Chun smiled bitterly in his heart. What misunderstanding could there be? A golden immortal expert from the lower realm of the immortal realm went to kill an earth immortal cultivator. Was there need to ask who to save? What misunderstanding could there be? I knew it. Grandmaster Su slapped his thigh. I thought you wanted me to save that Elder Feng. I'm not related to him, and he's a poor wretch. Why would I take the risk to save him? Elder Chun was about to collapse. He had never seen such an unreliable grandmaster. A golden immortal expert went to kill an earth immortal cultivator, and he actually misunderstood it as saving that golden immortal expert. Wasn't the hole in his brain a little too big? Wait. Elder Chun suddenly reacted. What did Grandmaster Su just say? Not daring to save him, not worth the risk? What was going on? Could it be that the one in danger was not Master Yang, but the golden immortal expert from the lower realm of the immortal realm? Elder Feng? Grandmaster, you're not joking, right? How could this be? Elder Chen almost wanted to shout in his heart. Chapter 2152. Grandmaster Yang is actually this powerful. Elder Chen finally shouted out his guess. That's right, he shouted. His voice spread throughout the flying magic treasure they were in. He can't. Ancestor Su shook his head. He's just an Earth Immortal Junior. How powerful can he be? That phone guy can kill him with one finger. Will Master Yang be in danger? Hearing that Yang Chun was an Elder Feng's match, Elder Qin started to worry again. From this point, the higher-ups of Wuji Demon School were very optimistic about their cooperation with Yang Chun and supported it in many ways. No, as long as he's with that person, he'll be fine. Ancestor Su shook his head and picked up the half-eaten, suckling pig. You scare me. I thought you liked that phone guy. Which person? Elder Qin relaxed when he heard that Yang Chun wouldn't be in danger. He was just curious. What kind of earth-shattering figure could make Ancestor Su say he didn't dare? She's the veiled woman beside Grandmaster Yang that you mentioned. Ancestor Su didn't hide it and told him the answer. Seeing that Elder Chan was still confused, he explained, I forgot you couldn't see it. During the auction, there were two people next to Yang Chun. One was an Earth Immortal male. I heard he was the manager of one of their buildings. Wanbao Tower. Elder Chun continued. He's an elder from Chunyang Palace. His surname is Wu. Yes, the manager of Wanbao Tower. Ancestor Su nodded and continued. The other was that woman. Her face was covered with a white veil. She's probably a Xian immortal. Who is she? Elder Chun didn't see the situation in the room and didn't know the specifics. He could only ask Ancestor Su. I don't know. Ancestor Su's answer was very irresponsible. She's masked. How would I know her identity? Elder Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this Ancestor Su. He could forcibly use his divine senses to penetrate the Samsara Valley box that was said to block divine senses, but he couldn't use his divine senses to investigate the face under the veil. Wasn't this a joke? You think I'm joking? Grandmaster Su looked at Elder Chun and knew what he was thinking. He laughed and scolded. Do you think I don't want to know her identity? If I knew, do you think I would let go of the opportunity? Her veil is an incredible magic treasure. I can't see through it at all. This surprised Elder Chun. To be honest, a magic treasure that could block off the spiritual sense of a true golden immortal expert was definitely an incredible item. Although I don't know her identity, I recognize the veil. Grandmaster Su was also interested in talking, unlike the beginning when he only said a few simple words. That veil can only be removed by two people. One is the woman wearing the veil, and the other, an expert in the refinement of the veil. Elder Chun promptly followed up and voiced out his own judgment. You're not stupid. Ancestor Su glanced sideways at Elder Chun and praised. However, this praise made Elder Chun speechless for a while. I really don't know this woman's identity, but I can see through the technique used to refine that veil. Ancestor Su spoke excitedly and couldn't help but boast. It's not that I'm bragging, but in terms of alchemy, I'm not as good as that Grandmaster Yang or that Elder Phone. But in terms of blacksmithing, the two of them combined are not my match. This old man relies on this pair of eyes to survive in the immortal world. No matter what kind of blacksmithing technique, it can't be hidden from this old man. Then who refined this veil? Elder Chun was really curious to know the answer, so he waited expectantly for Ancestor Su to tell him. I can't say. It was rare that when Ancestor Su said this, he actually shivered for no reason. His face revealed a horrified expression. I don't dare to say. When he spoke, his gaze was filled with reverence. He glanced at Elder Chun, who was stunned by his words, and added, It's a blessing that you don't know. Knowing too much won't end well. To be able to scare Ancestor Su to this extent, Elder Chun wasn't someone who didn't know what was good for him. He definitely didn't dare to let him know. This was Grandmaster Su's way of protecting him, not because he did not trust him. It's his blessing that the one surnamed Feng doesn't make a move. If he dares to make a move, he will definitely die without a burial place. Ancestor Su didn't have a good impression of the one surnamed Feng at this moment. If he's smart, he'll do what he needs to do honestly. If he has other thoughts, then he can forget about it in the future. Elder Chen naturally understood what this meant. If the one surnamed Feng dared to make a move on Yang Chun, only death awaited him. However, when did Grandmaster Yang Chun find such a big backer? If this was the case, there was a need to curry favor with Grandmaster Yang in the future. This was in line with the sect's interests. Don't have crooked ideas. Ancestor Sue directly reminded them. If we could, we wouldn't need you guys. I would have gone over to put in a good word. We wouldn't dare. If that person found out that we used Yang Chun to have ideas on that woman, we wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. As he spoke, Ancestor Sue drew a line on the side of his neck, indicating that this was a deal that would cost him his head. Yang Chun is doing his best to curry favor with that woman. Ancestor Sue finally gave a positive evaluation of Yang Chun for once. According to what you said, he's so smart. How could he not know the common sense of not showing off his wealth? Isn't it because he's afraid that woman will flip out on the spot? Elder Chen thought about it and agreed. When did Grandmaster Yang not take advantage of them when he interacted with them? He even got a good reputation. How could such a smart person do such an irrational thing? There must be a reason. The woman that Ancestor Sue mentioned should be the reason. Now, Elder Chun was a bit envious of Grandmaster Yang. Why did he always encounter good things? Not only was his alchemy outstanding, his luck was also extraordinarily good. Why couldn't other people find the dwelling divine jade? Why couldn't other people encounter such an important person who was worth doing their best to curry favor with? Why did Yang Chun have to encounter such a person? All of a sudden, Elder Chen really hoped that Elder Feng of the Great Wilderness sect would go find trouble with Yang Chun. It would be best if he went to find him immediately in a fit of rage. If that happened, the person with the surname Feng would definitely fall in the hands of that mysterious woman. Then, the Great Wilderness sect would lose its experts from the immortal world. It could only obediently follow behind everyone and completely become the vassals of the other big sects. No matter when, seeing the decline of a sect that used to be on par with their own sect was a delightful thing. This wasn't a conspiracy of Wuji Demon School. It was purely the Great Wilderness sect's own fault. However, according to Elder Chen's judgment, they probably wouldn't have the chance to turn back. Based on Elder Chen's judgment, they probably wouldn't have the chance to turn back. Chapter 2153. Shameless Boasting. When Yang Chun said the classic mantra, Elder Feng snorted coldly and snorted. Do you really think that you are an executioner who controls the life and death of others? Actually, I have to thank you. In Yang Chen's hand, there was already a shadow of Shao Tian biting the immortal beheading blade. He ignored Elder Feng's disdain and said slowly, Thank me for what? Elder Feng was curious and asked. This junior wouldn't be scared silly, right? Even when he was about to die, he still had to thank me. Even if he wanted to die, he wouldn't have such a thought, right? Thank you for choosing such a good place. Yang Chen's face also showed a smile. No one knows, and it won't attract other people's attention. You're welcome. Elder Feng understood Yang Chen's words, but he still felt that this junior was too arrogant and overestimated himself. Master Yang, you have a reputation. No matter what, I have to choose a good place for you. At this point, there was no need to say anything more. Elder Feng wouldn't allow Yang Chun to live. Whether it was because he lost his face or because of Yang Chen's wealth, he wouldn't allow him to stop at this time. And Yang Chen also said that every grievance had a perpetrator and every debt had a debtor. Once he accepted this cause and effect, he would never stop. Moreover, even if Yang Chen stopped, Elder Feng might not be grateful. Between the two of them, only one of them would live and the other would die. Elder Feng hadn't seen such a junior who overestimated himself for a long time. An Earth Immortal Junior also wanted to challenge the dignity of a golden immortal master. He really didn't know if this guy had listened to too many compliments and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, or he was just obsessed with alchemy and didn't know the ferocity of the fight between cultivators. But no matter what, he was dead. The two almost made a move at the same time. Yang Chun swung the immortal beheading blade and flew towards Elder Feng. At the same time, Elder Feng also held his flying sword and went forward. An Earth Immortal Junior dared to bare his fangs in front of him. Elder Feng didn't even use his flying sword to kill him from a distance, but chose to fight him in close combat. No matter what, he had to teach Yang Chun an unforgettable lesson. He had to let him know that the dignity of a golden immortal expert couldn't be challenged. He had to let him know that even in close combat, he was no match for him. Wouldn't it be a pity to play such a fun toy to death? The immortal beheading saber and the flying sword collided heavily. Elder Fang's face revealed a long-awaited smile, as if he was about to see the result he had anticipated. However, this expression only lasted for a moment before it turned into a look of shock. Hong! After a loud sound, the two figures shot out in two different directions like two cannonballs. As Yang Chun flew backwards, he spat out a mouthful of blood, which splattered all over the ground. A golden immortal expert was indeed a golden immortal expert. He was far from being comparable to those fake golden immortals in the spiritual realm who had yet to pass the profound immortal tribulation. The powerful spiritual power counterattack. Even if Yang Chun had the golden body secret art to protect his body and the golden bell to protect his body, he had borne most of the counterattack power, but only the remaining little bit. Yang Chun could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, the golden body incantation in Yang Chun's body also contained the great yin-yang 5 elements formation, coupled with the heavenly spirit treasure refining technique and the earth fiend sacrificial formation technique. The spiritual power that filled his lungs was quickly dispersed and dissipated. He only had to pay the price of a mouthful of blood to withstand Elder Fang's attack. Elder Fang was originally very relaxed. He only used 30% of his spiritual power to attack. He wanted to see Yang Chun being shocked by his own spiritual power and bleeding from his 7 orifices. But when the weapons of the two sides came into contact, Yang Chun's beheading immortal blade fiercely passed a powerful force. This force was so powerful that Elder Fang had to urgently mobilize his spiritual power to 70%, which was barely enough to deal with it. However, even so, Elder Fang's body had already involuntarily soared into the air when he withstood Yang Chun's saber. The force was so strong that he was sent flying by the saber. No matter how he tried to control his body, he could not stop the force from flying backward. Only when all the force was removed did he stand far away, safe and sound. If one were to compare the distance that both parties retreated, there was not much difference. In other words, in this round of slashes, the distance that Yang Chun retreated was not inferior to the golden immortal Elder Fang at all. It was just that he spat out a mouthful of blood more than Elder Fang. When Yang Chun landed, there was already an elixir in his hand. He quickly swallowed it and suppressed the surging blood chi. The merit elixir that Yang Chun refined himself had amazing medicinal effects. It only took a moment for him to recover to his original state. Elder Fang could not believe his own eyes. He had used 70% of his power, and the other party only spat out a mouthful of blood? How is this possible? Even a Heaven Immortal expert would not be able to withstand an attack with 70% of his power, let alone a small Earth Immortal Junior. Looking at the weapon in Yang Chun's hand, there was not even a small nick on it. The material and refinement of the spiritual world could actually withstand the natal flying sword that he had refined for tens of thousands of years in the immortal world and come out unscathed? Was there something wrong with his eyes, or had the world changed? However, at this moment, Elder Fang could no longer care about the mystery. The 2 fire dragons that suddenly appeared beside him posed a great threat to him. Elder Fang himself was a fire cultivator. Otherwise, he would not have become a grade 8 elixir master. He was not unfamiliar with fire, but he had never seen these 2 fire dragons in front of him. Not only that, the 2 fire dragons contained terrifying power. Even Elder Fang had to be careful when dealing with them. In an instant, Elder Fang released his natal true fire to keep the 2 fire dragons at bay. Fighting fire with fire was the most correct method. No matter how powerful the other party was, as long as they could not break through his fire seed, then everything would be useless. However, the fire dragon's attack was only a part of it. From another direction, a clump of black mist and a clump of black water that looked extremely poisonous were attacking Elder Fang. Even with his golden immortal cultivation base, Elder Fang was still flustered by these attacks. Yang Chun had already swung his immortal slaying saber and pounced forward. While Elder Fang was dealing with the black fog and black liquid, he suddenly realized a terrifying fact. His own fire seed was being devoured. How was this possible? Elder Fang had lost count of the number of times he had exclaimed in surprise. The two fire dragons were clearly illusory. They were just the shapes of two fire seeds. How could they devour his fire seed? How could this go on? As for Yang Chun, although he was strong, he might not be able to hurt Elder Feng. Looking at the figure of Yang Chun pouncing towards him, Elder Feng had a thought. The natal flying sword flew towards Yang Chun as though it had come to life. Elder Feng did not believe that no matter how powerful Yang Chun's protective Dharma treasure was, he could withstand a few attacks from his natal flying sword. Chapter 21:54. Just as he expected, Elder Feng's natal flying sword cut through Yang Chun's body and stopped. It was not that Elder Feng wanted the flying sword to stop, but Yang Chun had already grabbed the flying sword. The powerful force forced the flying sword to stop. Being held in Yang Chun's hand, the flying sword was still trembling and struggling, but it could not escape from Yang Chun's control. The flying sword was indeed sharp and could cut through Yang Chun's body, but it was only limited to the skin on his hand. It did not even cut through his muscles. It must be said that the natal flying sword of a golden immortal expert was indeed powerful. Even with Yang Chun's current strength, he was still unable to damage the flying sword. He only bent it a little, but it did not affect the flying sword's function at all. Such a powerful flying sword, but Yang Chun was not surprised at all. If the natal flying sword of a golden immortal expert was so easily damaged, then the many heavenly tribulations that he had gone through would have been a waste. However, controlling Elder Feng's natal flying sword was only Yang Chun's goal. If he really wanted to destroy it, he would have to use the Immortal Beheading Saber. Now that the Immortal Beheading Saber was fused with the black bracelet's material, it was extremely hard and heavy. In addition, it was fused with the entrance of the Immortal Beheading Platform, which had the ability to cut through space. It was the most powerful weapon to deal with this guy's natal flying sword. Holding on to Elder Feng's natal flying sword with his left hand, Yang Chun raised the Immortal Beheading Saber with his right hand and slashed at the edge of the flying sword. Dang, 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 a few consecutive slashes, all hitting the same spot. A small nick was about to appear on the natal flying sword. Elder Feng had never seen such a shameless move from Yang Chun. On one hand, he used the fire dragon, black fog, and black water to entangle him. On the other hand, he grabbed his natal flying sword with his bare hands. Relying on the sturdiness of his natal flying sword, he slashed with all his might. Which sex expert would use such a move? However, it didn't matter if a move was a scoundrel or not. As long as it worked, it was fine. Although the natal flying sword had not been chipped, it had directly affected Elder Feng. If this went on without any improvement, Elder Feng's vitality would be greatly damaged if his natal flying sword were to be destroyed. Having his natal flying sword forcefully broken by an earthly immortal junior was definitely not a good reputation. Even if they killed Yang Chun in the end, they wouldn't be able to make up for this huge loss. Only the heavens knew what material this junior used to refine his broadsword. He was actually able to gain the upper hand in a head-on clash of blades. A bona fide golden immortal expert actually allowed this junior to gain the upper hand due to a moment of carelessness. Then, Elder Feng chased after him relentlessly. Elder Feng had not been in such a sorry state for many years already. The fellow who put him in such a sorry state previously was already a skeleton in a grave. This time, Yang Chun was dead for sure. Even the Heavenly Emperor would not be able to save him. The golden immortal expert who got serious easily shook off the black fog and black water. However, the two fire dragons were somewhat troublesome. They could not be chased away and were still slowly swallowing up his natal true flame. Elder Feng wondered how this fellow refined them. No wonder his pill refinement skills were so high. Just the aspect of controlling fire was already not that simple. However, just as Elder Feng was about to seriously deal with Yang Chun, he took one step forward and had no choice but to stop. The image of a dragon appeared behind Yang Chun. That was A.O. Land's figure, a peak golden immortal dragon race expert. Elder Feng finally understood where Yang Chun's confidence came from. From the elder who accompanied him, Elder Feng knew that Yang Chun had a deep relationship with the dragon race. Now, he finally saw proof. A dragon race expert supporting Yang Chun. If it were Elder Feng, he would also dare to be unparalleled in arrogance. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful you have not cleared the profound immortal tribulation. Elder Feng simply stopped controlling his natal flying sword, letting Yang Chun do as he pleased. As long as Elder Feng's spiritual energy could last, Yang Chun had not been able to do anything to the flying sword after so long. No matter how hard he tried, it would be pointless. It was better for Elder Feng to focus on dealing with this peak, golden, immortal dragon race expert. You will never know how big the gap is between the two. So what if Ao Lan is a dragon race expert? Elder Feng was confident of suppressing Ao Lan within 1,000 moves and killing her in another 1,000 moves. He had cleared 2 more heavenly tribulations than Ao Lan. That difference was not small. If Ao Lan continued to be so careless, Elder Feng would probably be able to kill her in less than 2,000 moves. Just as Elder Feng was about to make a move, he suddenly stopped. In another direction, a silly-looking fellow appeared, hugging a small toy and playing happily. It was Lin Jingyuan. That silly-looking fellow looked harmless. However, Elder Feng had to focus all his attention on dealing with him. Others might not be able to tell, but with one look, Elder Feng knew that this was also a golden immortal expert. Furthermore, like him, Ao Lan was also a tribulation-passing expert. Where did this junior, Yang Chun, find so many golden immortal experts? Elder Feng suddenly felt some regret. Why did I look for this fellow? Facing 2 golden immortal experts at the same time, with his own life source flying sword being controlled by Yang Chun, this was not a fun thing. However, today was destined to be a disaster for Elder Feng. Before Ao Lan and Lin Jingyuan could make a move, another dragon appeared in another direction. Given Elder Feng's eyesight, he could immediately tell that it was just a dragon puppet. However, even if it was just a puppet, it was a golden immortal puppet. If 3 golden immortal experts surrounded it, it would probably take a lot of effort. Elder Feng turned serious, carefully observing the weaknesses of the 3 opponents' encirclement. As for Yang Chun, could he be considered an opponent? Lin Jingyuan was a tribulation-passing expert. Although he looked silly-looking, it would be very troublesome to make a move. Ao Lan was a peak golden immortal. Although she had not undergone her tribulation, her cultivation was there. The easiest to deal with was the dragon puppet. Firstly, it had not undergone its tribulation. Secondly, it was only a peak golden immortal. Thirdly, it was just a puppet that needed to be controlled by someone. It should be the weakest. Elder Feng was an expert at controlling puppets. No one knew that his true natal magic treasure was the puppet that looked exactly like him. Right now, what Yang Chun was controlling was only the puppet's natal flying sword. Even if the flying sword was damaged, it would not affect him. To think that he thought that his plan worked, so he continued to smash the puppet with all his might. After discovering the weakest dragon puppet, Elder Feng did not say anything and immediately made a move. In a battle between cultivators, Elder Feng was more experienced than anyone here. Seizing the upper hand first was the most important thing. The moment Elder Feng made a move, Ao Lan, Lin Jingyuan, and the other dragon puppets all moved as well. However, the first attack to arrive was not from the 3 of them. Instead, it was a black fog that was several times denser than when Yang Chun was fighting earlier. It suddenly appeared out of nowhere and charged at Elder Feng. Within the black fog, there was an extremely small and inconspicuous sword chi. It pierced towards Elder Feng. Chapter 2155. The black fog that suddenly appeared was the authentic demonic chi of the demonic world. Although it could not deal any damage to the golden immortal Elder Feng, it could still cause him some trouble. Elder Feng had to defend against the attacks of the 3 golden immortals, so he did not pay much attention to the black fog. He thought that the black fog would at most be like what he did to Yang Chun earlier, easily dealt with. Even if it looked denser, so what? In fact, it was as Elder Feng expected. The black fog only caused him some trouble. When his spiritual sense touched it, he would feel somewhat dazed. Then, he would have a lot of chaotic thoughts. If it were a cultivator in the mortal world, this would be a fatal attack. However, to a golden immortal of the immortal world, it only made him relive the fear of a heart demon when he was young. The main point was the encirclement of the three golden immortals. Boom! The dragon puppet and Elder Fong exchanged a move. Indeed, it was as Elder Fong expected. With just his full power move, the dragon puppet was sent flying far away. Many of its scales also fell off. With just 2 or 3 more moves, he would be able to severely injure the dragon puppet. Fortunately, it was just a puppet. Otherwise, that earlier move would have left it in pain for a long time. However, even so, the cultivator controlling the dragon puppet would not have it easy. However, while the dragon puppet was injured, Aolan seemed to be even more injured, pouncing over frantically. Elder Fong did not know what the dragon puppet meant to Aolan. That was the physical body of a reborn fire dragon. How could it allow him to injure it like that? When the enraged Aolan went berserk, even Elder Fong had to deal with him carefully. Furthermore, there was Lin Jingyuan attacking at the same time. Elder Fong had to deal with the attacks of 2 golden immortals at the same time. As long as any one of them revealed a slight opening, it would be sufficient for Elder Fong to find an opportunity to deal with it. Elder Fong, who was dealing with the golden immortal experts with all his might, did not notice that there was a thin strand of sword chi in the black fog earlier. When spiritual sense came into contact with a black fog, it would produce negative emotions. Hence, Elder Fong cleverly shielded the black fog from his body and did not use his spiritual sense to probe it. When the sword chi reached his body, he discovered it. Elder Fong admired this kind of coordinated attack. If the target was not him, he would be very happy to comment on this continuous chain of attacks. However, he didn't have the mood to do that now, and it was more important to deal with the sword chi first. In Elder Feng's mind, a mere sword chi, even if it was released by a golden immortal expert, might not be able to break through his body that had been tempered by the profound immortal tribulation. However, when the sword chi pierced through his skin, burrowed into his body, and penetrated his organs, he realized that he had underestimated the sword chi. Of course, the sword chi could only go so far. This was a supreme pure yang sword chi unleashed by Shi Shanshan with all her strength. She used the pure yang immortal sword to unleash the sword chi, and it worked. A needle-sized wound was left on Elder Feng's body, and there was even a little blood seeping out of the wound. It looked inconspicuous, but Elder Feng knew that his internal organs were injured. Relying on his valiant strength, Elder Feng managed to block the sword chi before it could advance further. Then he forcefully dispersed the sword chi. Even so, his internal organs were slightly pierced. Although it wasn't fatal and wouldn't affect him too much, he was still injured. He was a dignified, golden immortal expert from the lower realm of the immortal world, but he was actually injured by a few minor experts from the spiritual realm. If this could be tolerated, what could not? Elder Feng went crazy on the spot and roared angrily. His surging spiritual power was no longer restricted by the spiritual realm and started to circulate wildly. Boom! It was like a huge bomb had exploded. With Elder Feng as the center, an incomparably huge circular pit was blasted out. The terrifying explosion pushed Aolan, Lin Jingyuan, and the dragon puppet far away. The enraged Elder Feng finally exploded with the terrifying combat power of an expert from the immortal world. The only thing that was not under Elder Feng's control was the flying sword in Yang Chen's hands, which was known as his natal flying sword. That was the natal flying sword of his puppet. The puppet was exactly the same as him. Hence, when he used this flying sword, no one would suspect that it was not his natal flying sword. Even though Yang Chen used the control of an expert from the immortal world, the flying sword was still firmly grasped in Yang Chen's hands. Yang Chen could not destroy the flying sword for now, but the flying sword could not return to Elder Feng's hands either. Dang! 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 A series of sounds of the immortal beheading saber smashing on the flying sword rang out. Because the immortal beheading saber had just merged with the black bracelet, the sharpness of the immortal beheading saber had been affected. Hence, even after such a long time, Yang Chun still had not managed to damage the flying sword. However, the continuous smashes had already left some marks on the flying sword. Elder Feng had never suffered such humiliation before. His figure moved, wanting to charge at Yangchen. Before he arrived, he had already punched out. With a full power strike, no matter how strong Yangchen's protected Dharma treasure was, his body would explode and he would die. Suddenly, a small snow-white fist appeared in front of Elder Feng's fist. Gong Sunling's face also appeared. The two fists clashed. Instantly, a series of continuous sounds of fists clashing rang out. In that instant, Elder Feng had punched every single one of the tens of billions of living beings in the Mountain River geographical map. Even though Elder Feng was strong as a golden immortal, after he split the force of tens of billions of punches, he no longer had any destructive power. None of the living beings in the Mountain River geographical map died from the clash of fists. Boom! In the final instant, a cave abode 500 kilometers wide suddenly appeared. Elder Feng punched it head-on. That cave abode endured the last of Elder Feng's strength and exploded into pieces, leaving nothing more than the size of a fist behind. Amid the intense explosion, the fragments of the cave abode covered a radius of several thousand kilometers. That was not all. Immediately after that, another cave abode appeared. Elder Feng's temper flared up. Without saying anything, he punched again. However, a third cave abode appeared right after that. It was like this was testing Elder Feng's patience. I want to see exactly how many caves you have that can withstand my attacks. Elder Feng did not believe it. Now that he was in his strongest state, he did not care about any experts of the spiritual realm. Ao Lan and Lin Jingyuan could only delay him at best. They were far from being able to injure him. It will be enough to tire you to death. Gong Sunling's delicate voice rang out. However, it was a tit for tat. She did not fear him at all, just because he was a golden immortal expert. Amidst the continuous rumbling sounds, in just a short while, no less than 10 cave abodes with a radius of 500 kilometers had been destroyed by Elder Feng. The fragments of the various caves were scattered in every corner of the cave abode they were in. Ao Lan, Lin Jingyuan, and the dragon puppets surrounded Elder Feng again. Similarly, they used their strongest power and attacked frantically. Chapter 2156. Very soon, Elder Feng realized that the three golden immortal experts didn't even want to fight him head-on. They were mainly trying to hold him back. What was the point of that? In front of an expert who wanted to kill them, what was the point of resisting with all their might? But the next moment, Elder Feng realized what they were trying to do. He didn't know which one of them was actually refining the cave abode that they were currently in. Was there anything more comical than this? Elder Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What was this? In an intense battle, not only did they not use their full strength to deal with the enemy, they even wanted to refine the cave abode. Even if they were courting death, they wouldn't do it this way. This was clearly a huge disrespect to their opponent. Didn't they know that even if they refined the cave abode, they wouldn't be able to escape death? In the end, wouldn't the cave abode still belong to them? However, from the performance of these cultivators so far, every one of them had something that could make one go crazy. Even if it was just something from the spiritual world, it was enough to tempt Elder Feng. When descending from the immortal world, one could only bring along their natal flying sword. But if they were to ascend, they could bring along many good things. The good mood that was brought about by the wealth within his reach was instantly destroyed. Elder Feng realized that he was really in trouble now. A portion of his natal true fire was actually slowly devoured by the two fire dragons that couldn't be dispelled. Now, there was a huge gap. This was not the most terrible thing. The most terrible thing was that there was an invisible fire seed released by a fire dragon that was slowly invading his divine sense. In his sea of consciousness, there was already a kind of invisible scorching heat that he did not know when it happened. And this heat was still deepening. Because of the influence of the fire, the invasion of the black fog that he had been neglecting was also intensifying. His mind was filled with distracting thoughts. If this carried on, it would probably affect his battle. At the same time, Elder Feng was shocked to discover that a portion of the cave abode that he had just started refining had already been refined by his opponent. In such a short period of time, a small portion of the cave abode had already become the opponent's possession. If this continued, He was afraid that he would have to expend a lot of energy just to fight for this cave abode. Taking care of the cave abode during a battle wasn't something that an expert should do. But Elder Feng instinctively felt that there must be some sort of conspiracy. These golden immortal experts weren't fools. They wouldn't do something so meaningless. Suddenly, Elder Feng's heart skipped a beat. It was as if something especially pitiful had happened. As if sensing something, he looked in Yang Chen's direction. The struggling flying sword held in Yang Chen's hand. Under Yang Chen's full strength, although it was not cut, it was bent into the shape of a crutch. Although this was not Elder Feng's true natal flying sword, there was still an indescribable telepathy between them. The flying sword was smashed into such a state. Elder Feng's heart ached. If he wanted to recover, he didn't know how much time and effort it would take. The brutal emotions in Elder Feng's heart grew stronger, and his attacks became more ruthless. The Immortal's Cave had already been thrown to the back of his mind, just as he had thought in the beginning. So what if it was taken away? When everyone was dead, wouldn't it all belong to Elder Feng? Elder Feng, who didn't notice that he had been deeply affected by the devil Qi, completely gave up control of the Immortal's Cave. Gong Sunling and the third primordial spirit accelerated the refining process. In order to be safe, Gong Sunling used Elder Feng's hands to blow up dozens of Immortal's Cave abode. Every inch of the land in this Immortal's Cave abode was contaminated with the aura of the Mountain River geographical map. The refining process became easier. Every day, countless cultivators transcended their tribulations and became a higher-level cultivator. After so many days, at least hundreds of millions of cultivators had improved. The power of the Mountain River geographical map increased day by day. In addition to the constant nibbling away of the Devil Realm, the Mountain River geographical map became more stable. Under such circumstances, refining a Immortal's Cave abode that was only 10,000 miles wide, that was completely contaminated with the aura of the Mountain River geographical map, didn't take much time for the third primordial spirit. It fully mobilized all the living beings in the Mountain River geographical map. Every breath could refine tens of miles of area. It only took a few hundred breaths of time for the area of 10,000 miles to become a part of the Mountain River geographical map. In other words, everyone was now in the Mountain River geographical map. No matter how powerful Elder Feng was, it was no longer up to him to go in and out. At this point, the first stage of Yang Chen's goal was perfectly achieved. After spending so much time and effort, Elder Feng no longer had a chance to escape. Whether it was life or death, Elder Feng could only accept it. It was impossible for him to escape. To deal with a golden immortal expert, even if they could kill him, it would take a lot of effort and time. The most troublesome thing was that once the golden immortal experts saw that the situation was not good, there was no way for them to stop him. Now that the entire Immortal's Cave abode had been refined into the Mountain River geographical map, there was no need to worry about this problem anymore. Unknowingly, the sound of a zither rang in the ears of everyone in the battle. However, what the people on Yang Chen's side heard was the sound of encouragement to fight, while what Elder Feng heard was a sound attack aimed at him. Now that Zhou Xianying had trained in the demonic world for so long, she could already do this easily. Gao Yu, Sun Qingxue, Tao Junqi, Lady Fenghua, and the others originally wanted to come out and fight as well. However, Yang Chen stopped them. Gong Sunling had the Mountain River geographical map, so she was safe. Shi Shanshan only needed one attack before hiding. Zhou Xianying's zither cultivation technique could be used from a distance. However, the other women did not have such conditions. They did not have strong defenses like Yang Chen either. They could only hide in the Mountain River geographical map and watch. Elder Feng finally sensed that something was wrong. Unfortunately, it was already too late. His path of retreat was already cut off. Aside from fighting with his life on the line, he had no other choice. Fortunately, A.O. Lan, Lin Jingyuan, and the dragon puppet could only fight him to a draw at best. Elder Feng still held the upper hand. Right now, Yang Chun and the others only had the possibility of defeating Elder Feng. If this dragged on, it was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Elder Feng's good mood did not last for more than 5 minutes. Then, he fell into a complete panic. Not far from where they were fighting, 7 dragons had appeared out of nowhere. One was at the early stage, Xian Immortal stage. One was at the peak of Xian Immortal stage, and the remaining 5 were all Golden Immortals. At this moment, they were stretching their bodies as though they were waiting to join the battle. Despicable! Elder Feng immediately shouted, using numbers to bully the few. Likewise, Yang Qin's voice came from afar. A Golden Immortal expert who is undergoing tribulation is dealing with an Earth Immortal Junior. Is bullying the weak something glorious? Chapter 21:57. The few experts, surnamed Long, could not make a move for the time being. They had just released the shackles of the dragon entangling grass, and they still needed a little rest before they could move. However, as long as they stood not far away, it was a great pressure on Elder Feng. He had to divide a lot of attention to guard against the sudden attack of the 7 Dragon Clan Masters. At this moment, Elder Feng really regretted it a little. If he knew that this Yang Chun was so difficult to deal with, why did he have to put Yang Chun to death because of a little dispute? This time, not to mention that he lost everything. Even his task of coming to the lower realm had become illusory. Thinking of the task of the lower realm, Elder Feng's eyes suddenly lit up and hurriedly shouted, Master Yang, it was a misunderstanding before. It was my fault. We still have to face the Zhao family, a life and death enemy. Don't kill our own people. Now you remember that we are on the same side? What were you doing earlier? Before Yang Qin spoke, A.O. Lai had already ridiculed him on the side. These days, he was miserably abused by Lin Zhengyuan. It was not easy to see someone who was more miserable than him. Naturally, he had to show his eloquence and feel comfortable. Yang Chun did not answer at all. After bending the flying sword, it was much easier to deal with it. He directly stuffed the curved flying sword into Xiao Tian's mouth and let him swallow the sword into his abdomen. The difference between Xiao Tian and the other party was not a problem of 1 or 2 big realms, but a big space level. So at the beginning, he must not let Xiao Tian make a move. Now that the flying sword was damaged, Yang Chun was still holding the sword hilt in his hand. No matter how hard the other party tried, it was impossible to hurt Xiao Tian. In an instant, Elder Feng noticed that his flying sword was being forcefully swallowed by the spiritual awareness imprint on it. In just a moment, the spiritual awareness imprint that he relied on to control the flying sword was reduced by more than half. If it was before the flying sword was intact, in this case, as long as Elder Feng moved, the flying sword would cut around and try to swallow the thing that tried to swallow his own spiritual awareness imprint under the sword. However, the flying sword from before was severely damaged, and the hilt was held by Yang Chun, so it couldn't be damaged at all. He had the intention to rush over, but the few Golden Immortal experts around him surrounded him tightly. There were also 5 Golden Immortal experts of the Dragon Clan, eyeing him covetously. Even a true Golden Immortal expert like Elder Feng could only helplessly watch as Yang Chun controlled Xiao Tian to devour the spiritual sense on his flying sword bit by bit. At this time, if he still wanted to hide it, then he would be courting death. Left with no choice, Elder Feng could only forcefully summon his natal magical treasure, the puppet that looked exactly like him. Originally, Elder Feng's puppet had already arrived at the Great Wilderness sect. In order to avoid arousing the suspicion of others, Elder Feng's puppet had been staying in a meditation room of the sect. As he was an elder, the people of the Great Wilderness sect naturally didn't want to disturb him. Upon receiving the summons, the puppet immediately stood up, broke through the roof, and flew in this direction. Unfortunately, the distance between them was too far. Even if the puppet had the cultivation of a Golden Immortal, it was not something that could be caught up in a day or two, unless Elder Feng could hold on until then. Now, Elder Feng was holding on, and Yang Chun and the others didn't immediately kill him. A true Golden Immortal opponent was hard to come by. The experts of the Long clan took turns to fight, always maintaining the suppression, but never immediately killing him. Just like this, both sides continued to waste time. Elder Feng didn't have any opinion on being used as a target for training. This was better than them swarming up and killing him, right? Anyway, Elder Feng felt that he could hold on, and he could always wait for the natal magical treasure to fly over. More than 10 days was enough for Xiao Tian to completely devour the spiritual sense on the flying sword. The moment the spiritual sense imprint completely disappeared, the puppet that was frantically rushing outside shook. It stopped in place for a moment, then flew over. As the owner of the puppet, Elder Feng could certainly understand the actions of the puppet, and he also understood the reason why the puppet was frozen just now. Looking at Xiao Tian, who was happily flying up and down, he couldn't help but gnash his teeth in hatred. Where did this junior find Yazzie? He could actually make Yazzie his own monster pet. If this Yazzie was his own monster pet, why would he bother to refine that puppet? He could directly refine Yazzie, and it would be the most powerful magic weapon. Perhaps it was aware of Elder Feng's thoughts. Xiao Tian suddenly turned to Elder Feng's side and made an angry roar in his mouth. After losing the flying sword, apart from the puppet that was still on the way, Elder Feng had no more magic weapons brought down from the immortal world. There were only a few dozen medicinal pills, and they were still refined in the spiritual world. Yang Chen's hand once again held the beheading immortal blade. This time, Xiao Tian catalyzed his ability to the extreme, just waiting for Yang Chen to launch a fatal blow. This was originally the Immortal's Cave that Elder Feng obtained in the spiritual world, but after being refined by the Mountain River geographical map, it became a part of the Mountain River geographical map. In the Mountain River geographical map, Yang Chen's third primordial spirit and Gong Sunling were the masters. After so many golden immortal masters fought for such a long time, the terrain here had already been destroyed and it was no longer recognizable. But no matter how much it changed, it couldn't change the fact that this place was already controlled by the third primordial spirit. Yang Chen's hands picked up the beheading immortal blade and stood at a distance and slashed down fiercely. It looked very funny, but when the speed of the beheading immortal blade reached its peak, Yang Chen had already appeared behind Elder Feng, and the blade of the beheading immortal blade also appeared on his back. Bang! When Elder Feng noticed it in time, and then used a protective magic weapon of the spiritual world to block behind him, it was a little too late. The beheading immortal blade smashed the magic weapon that was hurriedly cast and slashed heavily on the back of Elder Feng. Because the material of the diamond chakram had not been completely refined, the beheading immortal blade now had almost no blade edge, only a blunt blade. Even with the addition of Xiao Tian and the entrance of the beheading immortal blade, it was not very sharp. This was determined by nature. However, at the moment, although the beheading immortal blade had no edge, it had two characteristics that the previous beheading immortal blade did not have: sturdiness and weight. The material of the diamond chakram itself was already indestructible, plus the extraordinary weight. Even if there was no edge, it would cause terrifying damage to the human body. Especially when the beheading immortal blade was still held in the hands of Yang Chen. The power of Li Qing Tian plus the speed of the beheading immortal blade itself slammed on the back of Elder Feng, directly blasting Elder Feng into the ground in the middle of the battle. The place where Elder Feng landed instantly became a huge pit, and a deep human-shaped hole appeared out of thin air. Before Elder Feng's painful cry had time to come out of his throat, it was quickly blocked in this deep hole. Everyone only heard a few dull cries coming from the deep hole. Chapter 2158. Boom! The entire ground exploded, and Elder Feng's figure appeared in front of everyone's eyes once again. Although he didn't seem to be injured, Yang Chen's sharp senses told him that Elder Feng's movements were still affected. Even though Elder Feng was a golden immortal expert, it was impossible for him to remain unscathed under such a powerful attack. Yang Chen's mind spun quickly, and he figured out the reason. The other party had an 8-revolution pill. Although its medicinal effect was about the same as Yang Chen's 6-revolution merit pill, the time it took for the medicinal effect to take effect was much faster than the 6-revolution pill. This was a true advantage in terms of grade. It wasn't something that Yang Chen could catch up to by using the merit chapter. From the trace of blood at the corner of Elder Feng's mouth, it could be seen that Yang Chen's attack just now had definitely injured him. The reason why he was so energetic now was because he had taken the pill. Elder Feng didn't notice that the world here was changing bit by bit. For example, the amount of spiritual energy he could absorb from the surroundings was much lesser compared to the beginning. Or rather, it wasn't that he didn't notice it, it was just that he didn't notice it. In Elder Feng's eyes, this kind of change was normal. The spiritual energy in the cave was limited. After fighting for such a long time, even if there was a spirit vein in the cave, wouldn't it be wrong if the battle was still the same as the beginning with so many golden immortal experts? However, what he didn't expect was that the spiritual energy absorbed by A.O. Lan, Lin Jingyuan, and the rest didn't change at all. Instead, it became even stronger. His third primordial spirit could effectively control everything in the mountain river geographical map, including the distribution of spiritual energy to people. Knowing that this guy had an 8 revolution pill and that they didn't have the ability to kill him directly, they could only use one method, and that was to exhaust his 8 revolution pill. Elder Feng was already badly battered. With so many golden immortal experts taking turns to fight him, no matter how strong he was, it was impossible for him to kill one of them in one go to relieve the pressure. What troubled him the most was the invisible sword chi that would appear every once in a while, which gave him a headache. Of course, the sword chi was released by Shi Shanshan. Every time she released the sword chi with all her strength, Shi Shanshan's whole body would become weak. However, in a mountain river geographical map, the third primordial spirit directly soaked her in the spiritual vein. Yangshan also took out a lot of 7th metal spirit crystals for her to absorb at any time, and the recovery speed was also very amazing. Every time he replied, Shi Shanshan would sneak an attack on Elder Feng. With the help of the third primordial spirit, Shi Shanshan's sword chi was able to hit Elder Feng's body every time. Supreme Pure Yang sword chi was no joke. With the enhancement from the immortal sword, the power of Shi Shanshan's sword chi had increased by at least 50%. Every single strand of sword chi could penetrate deep into Elder Feng's internal organs. Even though he would use his strong spiritual power to resolve it every time, this level of consumption was not something he could bear. Elder Feng was already begging for his natal magic treasure to fly faster. Who asked him to be so arrogant at the start? He thought that if he personally took action, a few juniors would be able to capture them easily. He did not expect that he would fall into such a situation. The experts of a dragon race treated Elder Feng purely as a practice target. Even the 2 Xian immortal experts, A.O. Lai and Long Yuan, went forward to sneak and attack. They did not have the pride of the dragon race or the dignity of facing the enemy head-on. They were a wretched mess. The more time passed, the more flustered Elder Feng became. His sea of consciousness seemed to be on fire. As a fire cultivator, he knew very well that he had fallen into a trap. An unknown fire was burning his soul. If he had the time, he would not care about this degree of damage. As long as he could calm down and cultivate for a while, he would be able to force the fire out of his body. But at this moment, how could he find the time to do so? Lin Jingyuan seemed to be more energetic the more he fought. What scared Elder Feng the most was that Lin Jingyuan actually understood that this was not a good sign. A foolish golden immortal was easy to deal with, but a normal golden immortal expert was not to be trifled with. Elder Feng also understood that this must be their battle slowly undoing the seal on Lin Jingyuan's body. He had heard of this method before. It was said that some big shots in the immortal world played this way. But why did he have to be so unlucky? The first time he made a move, he met such a tough opponent. The few experts of a dragon race had the most coarse and thick skin. When they surrounded Elder Feng, they would often exchange injuries for injuries. Once an expert of the dragon race was injured, they would be replaced immediately. Elder Feng did not even have the chance to chase after them. Elder Feng had pills, but so did Yangchun. Moreover, the effects of the pills were not inferior to Elder Feng's. No matter how fast the effects of Elder Feng's pills were, they could not withstand Yangchun's continuous attacks. His injured companions had plenty of time to wait for the effects of the pills to take effect. There were many times when Elder Feng wanted to scold Yangchun for being shameless. But after Yangchun retorted that he was bullying the weak, there was no more sound from him. Both sides had the advantage. If he could not take down Yang Chun, it would be his failure. Between cultivators, there was not much reason. Moreover, even if there was with so many opponents, he might not be able to reason with them. He had lost count of the number of times he regretted his actions. But Elder Feng no longer had the chance to regret. Now, he could only hope that his pills could last until the natal puppet arrived. There were not many pills left. When Yang Chen's beheading immortal blade once again slashed at the back of Elder Feng's neck, it almost broke Elder Feng's neck bone. The second primordial spirit, finally, could no longer endure. At the moment of contact, it madly poured its killing intent onto Elder Feng's body. Another human-shaped hole appeared in the ground. However, this time, Elder Feng was not as relaxed as before. Even though he had consumed 2 pills in a row to reduce the severity of his injuries, he could no longer maintain his calm in his sea of consciousness. Under the double attack of the spirit-devouring dragon fire and the killing intent of the immortal beheading platform, Elder Feng's consciousness nearly fell into a trance. Only when Ao Lan and Lin Jingyuan struck him twice did he forcefully regain his consciousness. The natal puppet was already very close. Elder Feng could already sense that the distance between his body and his natal magic treasure was no more than 500 kilometers. However, this 500 kilometers was like a heavenly moat that he could no longer cross. Ao Lan and Lin Jingyuan's strikes had chopped off half his arm and one of his legs. Due to the intense pain, Elder Feng was about to swallow the 8 revolution pill in his mouth when a sword chi pierced through his mouth, through his teeth, through his tongue, through the pill, and into the back of his neck. This caused Elder Feng's vision to turn dark. Fortunately, the pill still had some effect, allowing him to maintain a clear mind. However, just at this moment, he received another heavy strike on the back of his neck. Ka-cha! Elder Feng could clearly hear the sound of his neck breaking. At this moment, there was only one thought in Elder Feng's mind. If I had known, I would not have offended Yang Chun. Chapter 2159. Elder Feng's natal puppet was still running desperately, but when it was still dozens of feet away from the geographical map, it suddenly stopped and stood in the same place. Its eyes were blank, and it no longer moved. The blood demon vine flying sword was directly grabbed by Yang Chun and stabbed into Elder Feng's throat, instantly absorbing all the blood in his body. With another horizontal slash, Elder Feng's head flew directly. The headless body of Elder Feng was directly entangled by a thick rattan. After the essence of the flesh and blood was absorbed again, finally, no one was interested in it and it fell to the ground. Of course, the experts of the Dragon Clan would not have any ideas about the body of a human cultivator. Several experts with the surname Long were thinking about the harvest of this battle in their minds, but they did not forget to let Sun Qingxue entangle them, with the dragon entangling grass again and continue to torture them. Lin Jingyuan's behavior was a little strange. He seemed to think of something. His whole person became a little more normal, no longer the silly look before, standing motionless in the same place. Don't think so much for the time being. Think about the battle first. Yang Chen's hand climbed onto Lin Jingyuan's shoulder. The two of them looked very intimate. At the same time, Yang Chun did not forget to remind Lin Jingyuan. Lin Jingyuan seemed to be confused. Hearing Yang Chen's familiar voice, he turned his head and smiled at Yang Chun, no longer thinking about it. He stared at Elder Feng's body for a while, seemingly thinking about the battle according to Yang Chen's suggestion. The body of a golden immortal expert, Ling, don't waste it. Gao Yu appeared in time, also looking at Elder Feng's body, and smiled. Previously, for safety reasons, Yang Chun only let Shi Shan, Gong Sun Ling, Zhou Xianying, and the Murong sisters fight. The other wives and concubines were hiding in the dark to watch the show. Now that the battle was over, they immediately appeared beside Yang Chun. In fact, he was too careless. Otherwise, we would not be able to bear the consequences. Yang Chun could finally let out a sigh of relief. A true golden immortal expert was indeed not easy to deal with. If he didn't have so many trump cards in his hand, he would have to ask Madame Bai and the others for help. Once Madame Bai made her move, they would have to break the seal on their cultivation. Once the battle was over, they would have to ascend, unless they stayed in the mountain river geographical map for the rest of their lives. This result was perfect. Madame Bai didn't have to intervene, and her friend were able to gain real combat experience. It couldn't be better. Fortunately, Elder Feng acted on his own, so everything was done flawlessly. There were no witnesses or material evidence, not even the time of the crime. Originally, his wishful thinking was good. After getting married to Yang Chun, he could do whatever he wanted with a large amount of wealth. However, he did not expect to die in the hands of Yang Chen's group. Now, no one knew that Elder Feng had died in the hands of Yang Chun. Even if they knew, there was no evidence. Who asked Elder Feng to arrange it so well, to the extent that he did not leave any traces behind? Wuji Demon School's martial ancestor Su and Elder Chun might be able to guess the truth, but would they say it? Martial ancestor Su was originally very afraid of Madame Bai, and Elder Chun was on Yang Chen's side. The two of them would definitely not say anything. The Great Desolate Sect had suffered a huge setback this time. A golden immortal expert who had just ascended not long ago had disappeared mysteriously. There was no place to look for him, and no place to cry. In the future, when the various big sect took action, without the support of the golden immortal martial ancestor, the Great Desolate Sect could only obediently follow the other sect's orders. However, it would no longer be able to occupy an important position. Under Gong Sunling's control, Elder Feng's corpse quickly turned into the strongest spirit vein in the mountain river geographical map. The spirit vein of a golden immortal expert's corpse was enough to support the cultivation of a peak Xian immortal expert. Even Ao Lan and the rest could absorb spiritual energy from this spirit vein without worrying about it drying up. Just when everyone was relaxing, Gong Sunling suddenly shouted at Yang Chun, "Husband, there's still one more." Yang Chun did not know what Gong Sunling's name was. It was only when Gong Sunling reminded him that there was still an Elder Feng that everyone became nervous again. A figure that looked exactly the same as Elder Feng was standing several meters away. He stood there quietly, motionless, and there was no expression on his face. It was really confusing. This was not within the mountain river geographical map. If he made a move outside, everyone could only escape. Everyone's heart could not help but tighten. However, after waiting for a long time, that Elder Feng still did not move, which made everyone very suspicious. What should be faced had to be faced. Yang Chun would not be so cowardly as to flee without a fight. At most, he would let Madame Bai's maidservant do it. At worst, that would be it. What was there to be afraid of? Therefore, very soon, Yang Chun appeared in front of that Elder Feng. However, that Elder Feng did not even look at Yang Chun. He still stood there motionless. This was very puzzling. Yang Chun took a few steps forward and got closer. Elder Feng still did not have any reaction. Yang Chun vaguely guessed something. He moved forward again until he reached the side of that Elder Feng. The other party still did not have any reaction. Yang Chun stood nearby and observed carefully for a while. Finally, a smile appeared on his face. When everyone in the mountain river geographical map saw Yang Chun stretch out his arm, pick up that Elder Feng horizontally, and then walk into the mountain river geographical map, they all surrounded him. They all wanted to understand what was going on. A lifelike puppet. Yang Chun put down Elder Feng and said the answer. Only then did everyone understand, and they all clicked their tongues in wonder. To be able to refine a puppet to this extent, it was really not an ordinary one. At this point, Elder Feng's arrangements outside were also clear. With this puppet, even if others knew that Yang Chun was killed, they would not suspect Elder Feng. This was because Elder Feng had always been communicating with the cultivators of the Great Wilderness Sect. Many people could probably prove it. Unfortunately, no matter how ingenious the arrangements were, it could not cover up his mistake this time. Underestimating the enemy caused everything to be irreversible. When the cave abode he brought was refined by the mountain river geographical map, everything was already destined. Not a bad puppet, Yang Chun praised, and directly threw this Elder Feng to the Murong sisters. Change its appearance. When the dragon puppet's cultivation is perfected, use this. This is a golden immortal puppet that has passed the tribulation. Yang Chun had never thought that Elder Feng would have this kind of buy one, get one free thing. This time, not only did he get rid of the threat of Elder Feng, He also gave the Murong sisters a powerful puppet after the dragon puppet was taken back. There were many benefits. The only regret was that other than this puppet and the flying sword that Yang Chen bent, there were no other gains. During the battle, Elder Feng had already used all the magic treasures that he could use. He had also used up all his elixirs. Not a single one was left. Chapter 2160. Poor wretch. Yang Chen's mouth gently gave such an evaluation, and then he threw the matter of Elder Feng aside and no longer paid attention to it. Master Yang had never met Elder Feng. He had been rushing back to the sect without any delay, right? Madame Bai was very dissatisfied when she found out. They had been fighting in the Devil Realm and only knew what had happened when they came back to take a bath and rest. Madame Bai was very dissatisfied that Yang Chen didn't call them for such a big thing and such a strong enemy. Isn't he treating us as outsiders? If something like this happens again, don't do it again. Madame Bai said with conviction. Yang Chen was so surprised that he was speechless. Madame Bai treated her family as her own. This couldn't be better. Yang Chen and his family set off again and rushed back to Chunyang Palace. Everyone acted as if nothing had happened. No one could tell what they had experienced. The Great Wilderness Sect was in a mess at the moment. Grandmaster Feng in the lower bound of the Immortal Realm suddenly broke out of his closed-door training and went somewhere. Everyone in the Great Wilderness Sect was very anxious. Although they didn't need to worry about Grandmaster Feng's safety, they didn't know where Grandmaster Feng was. How many things would be delayed? Some of the higher-ups had already criticized silently. This Grandmaster was too unreliable to not know what was important and what was urgent. However, Grandmaster Feng was a senior. These juniors couldn't interfere with what he wanted to do. No matter how anxious they were, they could only hide their thoughts in their hearts. They didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction on their faces. Everyone could only wait obediently. Presumably, the Grandmaster had finished his own matters and would return soon, right? They waited for more than a year, but Elder Feng seemed to have ascended from the spiritual realm. No one had seen his shadow ever since. The Great Wilderness Sect searched everywhere and almost turned the entire spiritual realm upside down, but they couldn't find Elder Feng. Accompanied by Elder Chun, Grandmaster Su ate well and drank well every day. His days were leisurely. When the news reached Wuji Demon School, Grandmaster Su gave Elder Chun a knowing look. See, I'm right? Elder Chun knew what was going on and nodded his head silently. His opinion of Yang Chen became higher and higher. However, there were some things that he could only keep in his heart. Grandmaster Su had already warned him not to reveal his conjecture to anyone, not even the leader of Wuji Demon School. Otherwise, he would turn hostile. From this point, it could be said that compared to Elder Feng, Martial Ancestor Su was definitely 10,000 times more brilliant in the way he handled matters. It was the same in terms of foresight. In the face of a terrifying cultivator like Madame Bai, it was best to feign ignorance. Yang Chen's family finally arrived at Sunset Rock. Elder Wu Xiong decided to stay and not return to the sect. Elder Wu actually didn't know about the battle with the Golden Immortal Expert because Yang Chen didn't allow him to observe the entire process. There were too many secrets in the Dragon Palace and the geographical map of mountains and rivers. It was not the time for Elder Wu to come into contact with them. Over the past few days, the geographical map of mountains and rivers never stopped growing stronger. Countless cultivators in the mortal world were still queuing up to undergo their tribulations. Even though more than a year had passed, more than half of them still hadn't had their turn. The speed of refining the demonic world was getting faster and faster. Now, it had reached the point where it could directly use the explosion of the 50-kilometer cave abode to assimilate and refine it. He believed that it wouldn't take long before he could use the 500-kilometer cave abode. In the following period of time, the spiritual realm seemed to be calm. There were only a few intermittent spiritual power tremors in the spiritual realm on a few days, but they didn't last for too long and disappeared in a flash. The ordinary cultivators of all parties did not take this as a big deal, but Yang Chen understood that the spiritual power vibrations should be the movements of the masters of the immortal world in the lower realm. All the major sect had started to get serious and treated the Zhao clan as an enemy that could destroy their sections. The Zhao clan's good days were probably numbered. After the battle with the Golden Immortal expert, all the experts of the dragon race, including A.O. Lan, entered closed-door cultivation in the Dragon Palace. The experts with the family name Long had already thought things through. They owed Yang Chun a great favor. Since they already owed him so much, they didn't care about one or two more debts. The environment of the Dragon Palace was very good. Furthermore, there was the Dragon Pagoda holding down the fort. It was at a much higher level than their respective Dragon Palaces. Since the battle was over, it was the most suitable place to enter closed-door cultivation and comprehend. Lin Jingyuan thought of something, but he didn't remember it completely. He only became more astute than before. However, he still acknowledged Yang Chen's family. Yang Chen and the others brought food, drinks, and entertainment. They ate, drank, and played without any delay. Actually, Yang Chen also obtained something from Elder Feng. It was just that Yang Chen didn't notice it at the start. Elder Feng was a fire cultivator. His life fire seed had been enhanced in the immortal world. During the battle, Yang Chen's Yang Fire Dragon devoured the other party's life fire seed. After the enhancement of the white fire seed, the Yang Fire Dragon completely overshadowed the Yin Fire Dragon, causing Yang Chen's Yin Yang Heaven Burning Fire to be unevenly enhanced. What had happened at the Reincarnation Valley auction had been spread by word of mouth among those who had participated in the auction. It had already spread throughout the spiritual realm. Many people were guessing who could be so extravagant as to use 1 million kilograms of supreme-grade spirit stones to buy the heart of a beautiful woman with unknown uses. At the same time, they also revealed no less than 5 million kilograms of supreme-grade spirit stones. It was not rare for cultivators to gossip. The path of cultivation was very lonely. Such gossip could relieve the boredom of cultivation. Many cultivators started to list the rich and powerful in the spiritual world, guessing who was the most likely. Several famous rich and powerful cultivators were on the list. Of course, there was also Master Yang Chun of the Chunyang Palace. Unfortunately, it was all speculation. Except for a few cultivators, no one knew that it was Yang Chun. Young Master Lu Wuji, who had seen Yang Chun with his own eyes, was now suffering from the 2 backlashes of his own invisible killing curse. At that time, Elder Feng counterattacked in anger. Young Master Lu's sea of consciousness was almost shaken, and it was not fully recovered until a few years later. At this time, the backlashes of the invisible killing curse made young Master Lu's life worse than death every day. If it weren't for his father's forceful suppression, young Master Lu didn't know if he could survive. The more painful it was, the more young Master Lu hated it. Every day when he was awake, he kept launching the invisible killing curse on Yang Chun. He didn't have a good time, but he couldn't let Yang Chun, the culprit, have a good time. In young Master Lu's heart, Yang Chun was the biggest source of trouble. If it weren't for him, how could he suffer such pain? Poor young Master Lu didn't know that every time he tortured, it was another poor person. Poor Yang Lan suffered this kind of undeserved disaster, but he didn't even know who the source was. He could only grit his teeth and bear the punishment from heaven once a day, waiting for the time when the Zhao family came to the spiritual world as soon as possible. Chapter 2161. Yang Chen's days in Chunyang Palace were very leisurely. In addition to his daily routine cultivation, he was thinking about alchemy. The previous deep understanding made Yang Chun feel that he had touched the edge of a breakthrough again. This was not a 7th-grade alchemist relying on the experience of his previous life, but a rebirth in the 6th-grade alchemist realm and a new understanding of the level of a high-grade alchemist. This meant that Yang Chen's alchemy level would soon surpass that of his previous life and become a 7th-grade alchemist in the true sense. The work of refining the demon realm with the mountain river geographical map had never stopped. With the deepening of the refining, the area of the mountain river geographical map in contact with the demon realm increased. The number of demonic beasts crossing tribulations increased, and the refining speed became faster and faster. It was a process of geometrical growth. Other people still did what they should do. Yang Chun was also waiting for those masters from the lower realm to enter the beast space to investigate, make trouble, and delay the Zhao family's pace. It was not so easy to deal with the Zhao family. The news that Yang Chun was waiting for did not appear, but an ordinary disciple of the Xintian sect came. This disciple of the Xintian sect was ordered to come to ask for alchemy. He was ordered by Elder Li, the great elder of the Xintian sect. It was very strange. If Elder Li wanted to ask for alchemy, he would have said it directly the last time they met. He knew what kind of elixir Yang Chun could refine. He would not send someone to come here without knowing anything. There must be a problem. Soon, this ordinary disciple stood in front of Yang Chun. The disciples of the Xintian sect had the temperament of a big sect, but in front of Yang Chun, they still showed enough respect. After all, he came to ask for alchemy. The elixir he wanted was very simple. It was a set of elixirs. However, because Yang Chen's prolongation pill, millennium pill, and other elixirs refined from the devilish bead had already been given to Sect Master Li, he was missing this one. Without much communication, Yang Chun took out the elixir. The other party paid the reward and turned to leave. It seemed to be a very normal transaction, and there was nothing suspicious about it. After the person walked far away, Yang Chun then began to slowly check the reward for this pill request. It was extremely unusual for the rewards to be spirit stones. Elder Li would reward them every time, and he would never use spirit stones to brush them off. This further proved that there was definitely a trap. Finally, when Yang Chun examined one of the large spirit stones, he found a clue. This spirit stone had a very subtle fluctuation of spiritual power, but it was usually hidden under the fluctuations of the spirit stone, so it was very difficult to detect. Only someone like Yang Chun, who had a very sharp divine sense, could discover it. This was a secret mark that they had agreed on. Yang Chun cast a few unique spells, and the spirit stone split into two, revealing a tiny piece of jade that was as small as a grain of rice hidden in the middle. Yang Chun pinched the jade slag with 2 fingers and probed it with his spiritual consciousness. A series of clear information was transmitted to Yang Chen's mind. There was a change in the Xintian sect, a very big change. This was unexpected by Yang Chun. According to normal reasoning, the masters of the profound heaven sect would descend to the lower realm, and then go to the monster beast space with the masters of other major sects to inquire about the news, delay the pace of the Zhao family, and destroy something. This was the right way. The Xintian sect itself should not have any changes, but this was not the case. The change itself was because the masters of the Xintian sect from the immortal realm came to the demon realm, and the masters in the demon realm were the main culprits and the key to the change. Unlike other sect, the Xintian sect sent 2 golden immortal masters to the demon realm at once. Just this alone was a level higher than the other sections. It should be known that sending a golden immortal master to the demon realm required a great price. Even other super sects were reluctant to pay such a price. If it was only the consumption of property, it was fine, but the biggest cost was the cultivator's cultivation and life. Sending a master to the demon realm meant that at least 1 tribulation true immortal and 10 zenith heaven golden immortals would completely lose their combat power. If they were unlucky, their lives would be in danger. 2 masters meant that they had to pay twice the price. Even the big sect was not willing to suffer losses for no reason. But the Xintian sect did it. Not only did it, but it was also very thorough. Among the 2 golden immortal masters they sent to the demon realm, one was a real golden immortal master, while the other was a zenith heaven golden immortal with his cultivation sealed. Once there was a big trouble, the master could remove the seal at any time. Even during the period of waiting for the ascension, he could solve the big trouble. This was originally a big move made by the Xintian sect for the sake of their own sect. It was not surprising at all. If this was the case, then the allied forces of the big sect had the upper hand in terms of combat power. Their chances of winning were greatly increased, which was a good thing. However, it just so happened that these 2 fellows from the lower realms were not easy to deal with. The first thing they did when they came to the demon realm was not to immediately understand the progress of things and make a plan against the Zhao family. Instead, they launched a coup. The current sect master of the Xintian sect, Sect Master Li, was originally the core elder of the sect. At that time, Sect Master Wang was plotted against by Hall Master Zhu of the Medicine Hall and was on the verge of death. It was Sect Master Li who stood up and saved Sect Master Wang's life. Later, Sect Master Wang also felt that the original successor to the Sect Master had not been honed and was not qualified enough to be of great use. So he passed the position of Sect Master to Sect Master Li. This was something that almost everyone in the spiritual realm knew. Later, during the inauguration ceremony of Sect Master Li, all the sects sent representatives to congratulate him. What happened later also proved that Sect Master Li was quite outstanding as the sect master of the Xintian sect. Whether it was finding the traces of the Zhao family, launching a strike against the Zhao family, or annihilating the Three River Alliance, the Holocaust sect, and the Thousand Demon sect, the Xintian sect did not fall behind. Strictly speaking, the Xintian sect played the role of a vanguard and leader in everything, leading the major sect to achieve brilliant results one after another. Even if there were some disagreements in a major sect and some small tricks that could not be shown in public when it came to targeting the Zhao family, no matter which sect master or elder, they all had to give 2 thumbs up to Sect Master Li, the sect master of the Xintian sect. This was the recognition that Sect Master Li had obtained with real achievements in the hearts of the people. Not only in the outside sect, but even within the Xintian sect, most of the disciples also recognized him. However, Sect Master Li's position as sect master was, strictly speaking, illegitimate and unjustifiable. According to the past practice of the Xintian sect, if the former sect master ascended, then the successor should be the next sect master of the Taishaman sect in the mortal world. This was the rule. The original successor sect master was only at the early Earth Immortal stage at that time. His reputation in the sect was not high enough to lead the Xintian sect, so Sect Master Li was able to take the position. Chapter 2162. In any case, no matter how well Sect Master Li did, there would always be people who were dissatisfied. The one who was most dissatisfied was the successor of Sect Master Wu of the Mortal World's Taishaman. He was the predecessor of Sect Master Li of the Mortal World's Taishaman and should have been the current Sect Master. In his eyes, the meritorious deeds made by Sect Master Li should have been his. However, the 2 masters sent to the mortal world by the mysterious Heaven sect were pure thugs. They didn't usually manage the affairs of the sect, and they didn't know how troublesome it was to manage a sect. They only knew that as long as everything was done according to the rules, the huge mysterious Heaven sect could develop and prosper. Sect Master Li's position was obviously not in line with the rules. As soon as Sect Master Wu came into contact with them, the 2 sides hit it off. Led by Zhou Sheng, the great overarching Golden Immortal from the mortal world, and together with another Golden Immortal Master, Lin Zongxuan, they directly questioned Sect Master Li's succession to the position of Sect Master. In terms of seniority, no one in the spiritual realm's profound Heaven sect could compare to Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan. Even the first elder, who had the highest seniority, had to address Lin Zongxuan as Martial Granduncle. As for Zhou Sheng, he was an elder of the sect that even Lin Zongxuan had to call Martial Uncle. In terms of cultivation, Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan were great overarching Golden Immortal and peak Golden Immortal respectively. It could be said that all the profound immortal masters of the mysterious Heaven sect combined were not their opponents. These 2 people didn't just question the legitimacy of Sect Master Li's succession. They just used this as an excuse to directly launch a purge to replace the sect master. They put Sect Master Li under house arrest and announced to the outside world that he was in closed-door cultivation and that Sect Master Wu, who should take over, would temporarily take over the position of Sect Master. After a victory with enough weight, they could rightfully announce the resignation of Sect Master Li and the succession of Sect Master Wu. It was not as simple as a few words to launch a move in the mysterious Heaven sect to replace a sect master who was supported by more than 90% of the disciples. It could be said that behind every power struggle, there was blood. This was the case in the struggle between emperors in the mortal world, and it was the same for cultivators. The Black Heaven sect was no exception. Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan were merciless even towards the disciples of their own sect. They killed 3 core elders and hundreds of disciples on the spot. If Sect Master Li hadn't decisively suppressed the emotions of his disciples when he saw that the situation was not good, and then cooperated with Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan, perhaps even Sect Master Li would have fallen into the fate of being killed by the Zhao family master. Sect Master Wu originally only had the cultivation of an Earth Immortal. In terms of cultivation, even the successor Sect Master could not control the situation. However, this fellow was truly ruthless. He directly consumed 3,000-year pills, forcibly raising his cultivation from the intermediate earthly immortal stage to the late heavenly immortal stage, even surpassing Sect Headley. Only then did everyone reluctantly agree. Of course, the decisive reason was still the great all-embracing golden immortal Zhou Sheng and the golden immortal Lin Zhongxuan. With the two of them supporting Sect Master Wu, the disciples of the profound heaven sect dared not speak out and could only silently accept this fact. They knew very well that if they continued to show dissatisfaction, not only would they lose themselves, but they would also lose the life of their beloved Sect Master Li. Just at this time, the news of the Samsara Valley's auction also came from there. It was too easy for the profound heaven sect to know who the guests were at the Samsara Valley's auction. As long as the high-level officials came forward and greeted the Samsara Valley, it would be fine. Soon, the news that Yang Chun had a large number of top-grade spirit stones fell into the eyes of Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan, especially when they heard that there were 3 experts from the immortal world present, the 3 experts from the Samsara Valley, the Great Wilderness Sect, and the Wuji Demon School. None of them could snatch the heart of a junior, which made Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan very dissatisfied. When did a little earthly immortal junior from the spiritual world dare to stand on the heads of the golden immortal ancestors and shit on them? If this could be tolerated, what cannot be tolerated? This was something that made everyone share a common enemy, and they could not let it go so easily. Therefore, Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan began to understand what kind of person Yangchen was and what kind of sect the Chunyang Palace was. Seeing this situation, the 36 elders of the Big Dipper, who were responsible for protecting the sect master, had an idea. These 2 elders from the mortal world did not know that Yangchen was a spy of the sect. In other words, the higher-ups did not confide in these 2 grandmasters and did not tell them the most critical point. In this way, only Sect Master Li and the 36 Big Dipper knew the identity of Yangchen and the entire profound heaven sect. Several other core high-level officials who knew the identity of Yangchen had been killed by Zhou Sheng on the first day of the coup d'etat. When they learned that the Chunyang Palace relied on Yangchen to exchange the sacred dwelling jade, the Millennium Elixir, the Prolongation Elixir, and other elixirs from the major sect for a promise to guarantee the peace of Chunyang Palace for thousands of years, and that Yangchen also relied on various elixirs to make so many top-grade spirit stones, Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan were very dissatisfied. It turned out that Yangchen's wealth was also a part of the profound heaven sect. There was no need to say anything. Investigate. Find out if Sect Master Li and his predecessors had taken the opportunity to enrich their own pockets in this matter. As long as they found the evidence, it would be more justifiable for Sect Master Li to step down, especially when they heard that Yangchen had asked the sect masters of the major sect to personally swear the great oath of the heart demon that they could not violate. They were even more furious. A little Earth Immortal Junior dared to do this to the profound heaven sect? He should have knelt directly in front of the profound heaven sect and begged the profound heaven sect to protect him, instead of using this way to threaten him. In the eyes of Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan, the 2 veteran masters of the profound heaven sect, the move of Yangchen and Chunyang Palace was the greatest blasphemy to the profound heaven sect. If they were not taught a lesson, they could not swallow this anger. Soon, Sect Master Wu came up with a way to not only teach the Chunyang Palace an unforgettable lesson, but also to make everyone speechless. Sect Master Wu's plan was to let the disciples who had been sentenced to death in the profound heaven sect, who had violated the sect rules, attack the Chunyang Palace. If they were defeated, They would be spared and smoothly take over the Chunyang Palace and the huge wealth of Yangchun. If they couldn't be defeated, it would be their own decision, and they wanted to take the opportunity to frame the sect. Anyway, these guys are going to die anyway, so it was better to let them fight for a chance to live. At the same time, this was also a means for Sect Master Wu to win people's hearts. You were sentenced to death when Sect Master Li was in power, but my new Sect Master gave you a chance to live as soon as he took office. Who is better and who is worse? Everyone should know, right? This disciple of the Profound Heaven Sect was sent by the Great Elder to deliver a letter. He also told Yang Chun about the recent changes in the Profound Heaven Sect, and also to remind Yang Chun to be careful. The attack of the Profound Heaven Sect would come soon. After reading these messages, Yang Chun couldn't help but smile bitterly. Damn, this struggle for power in the Profound Heaven Sect even involved me. What an injustice. Chapter 2163. However, Sect Master Wu of the Mysterious Heaven Sect seized power well this time. Yang Chun was definitely going to destroy the Mysterious Heaven Sect, but after getting along with Sect Master Li for so many years, he more or less had a little affection for him. If he killed Sect Master Li just like that, it would seem that Yang Chun was not righteous. However, there was no problem at all with Sect Master Wu. The two guys sent by the Mysterious Heaven Sect this time were two idiots. What was their mission? Thugs. They had no brains, so they listened to the words of people with brains. However, these two guys thought that they were senior and senior, pointing fingers at the affairs of the sect. If they weren't idiots, then what were they? It was somewhat reliable to say that Sect Master Wu succeeded the position. After all, Sect Master Wu had managed the Taishaman in the mortal world, and he had done a good job in that position. But what about Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan? They were obviously two warriors who cultivated wholeheartedly, but they suddenly learned to manage the sect? If these two guys were only trying to maintain the orthodoxy of the Mysterious Heaven Sect, then it would be fine. After helping Sect Master Wu up and letting him take charge of the sect, they would do whatever they wanted. This would not lose the image of two good disciples who wholeheartedly considered for the sect. However, these two guys were obviously not like this. From the news sent by the Great Elder, these two guys directly regarded themselves as the supreme sect masters of the Mysterious Heaven Sect, and no matter what happened, they would intervene. It could be said that during this period of time, the entire Mysterious Heaven Sect was full of complaints. Not only ordinary disciples, but even Sect Master Wu couldn't stand the perverse actions of these two guys. However, he had no way to resist. Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan were unparalleled in their ruthlessness. When they forced Sect Master Li to abdicate, the three core elders only expressed their intentions, and they were directly beheaded by the two of them. Even the core elders were treated like this. How could he, a sect master who had just come to power without any foundation, fight against these two guys? He could only obediently do whatever he was told to do. If he had known this earlier, Sect Master Wu wouldn't have thought about it at that time. He was a core disciple of the Mysterious Heaven Sect, and he was destined to succeed the Sect Master in the future. His loyalty to the Mysterious Heaven Sect was unparalleled. Looking at the current state of the sect, Sect Master Wu was sadder than anyone else. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. However, Sect Master Wu could only suppress his sadness in his heart. If he was gone, then the sect would definitely become more and more degenerate. At least with him around, the sect's image could still be maintained. As for Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan, they would ascend after dealing with the Zhao family, right? It was obvious that Sect Master Wu had underestimated the greed of these two fellows who had suddenly tasted the taste of power. In the spiritual realm, the two of them were the retired emperors, but after ascending to the immortal realm, they were just pawns that could be ordered around. As long as one had a brain, they would know what to choose. Targeting Chunyang Palace was their first external action. Of course, the purpose was Chunyang Palace and Yangchen's wealth. However, they couldn't show up for this kind of thing. Naturally, the disciples who were punished would do it for them. If they had to deal with a small Chunyang Palace in person, wouldn't it be too much? They were the masters of the immortal realm. It was already a great honor for them to have ideas on you. But they still had to do it themselves? Chunyang Palace and Yang Chun didn't have this kind of face. Yang Chun received the warning from the Great Elder and began to make arrangements quietly. There were a lot of disciples in the Xintian sect, and there were more than a dozen Xian immortal masters among them. If they really fought, the strength of Chunyang Palace would still be at a disadvantage. While making arrangements, Yang Chun also admired the vision of those guys in the Immortal Realms Xintian sect. Why did they choose such two brainless guys? The enemy hadn't even made a move yet, but they had already executed the 3 core elders of the Xintian sect and killed hundreds of disciples. This was a brilliant result that the Zhao family had not achieved after so many battles with a major sect. If the Zhao family found out about this, would they celebrate? What made Yang Chun glad was that he didn't expose himself. The news sent by the Great Elder clearly mentioned that Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan didn't know the identity of Yang Chun. However, Yang Chun couldn't be careless. Who knew if these two guys knew and pretended not to know? Anyway, the final result was that they wanted to swallow Yang Chun and the wealth of Chunyang Palace. It was better to deal with an outsider than to deal with their own disciples. Wasn't it better to deal with their reputation? 2 grandmasters, this Yang Chun's alchemy technique is superb. Most of the injuries of the masters in the sect were saved by his elixir. Sect Master Wu was still making the last effort. He also understood that once he took action against Chunyang Palace, it would be difficult to get Yang Chun's elixir. Why don't we just teach him a lesson secretly? Don't make things so big. Just a 6th grade alchemist, that's all. Zhou Sheng was too lazy to talk, but Lin Zongxuan had already replied very disdainfully. Isn't it just elixir? Don't worry, this time the Great Wilderness sect sent an 8th grade alchemist to the lower realm. Isn't it easy to get better elixir? Besides, we have learned that this Yang Chun has killed many disciples of the Xintian sect. The sect has actually cooperated with him for so long. It would be strange if there is nothing fishy about it. Zhou Sheng also nodded and said, have you found out these days whether that surnamed Li has pocketed his own money or not? If we find the evidence, we can execute him directly. No. Sect Master Wu shook his head. This disciple has checked the account books of the sect for thousands of years. Basically, there are records of every transaction. The price is also the average price at the time, even a little cheaper. I can't find any problems on it. Yang Chun and Sect Master Li didn't expect that at that time. In order not to arouse the suspicions of the people in the sect, and not to arouse the suspicions of other sect members, the play they made with Yang Chun had finally played its due role. At least on the books, no flaws could be found. Even Sect Master Wu couldn't do anything about this. As for Yang Chun killing disciples of the Xintian sect, the first one he killed was Zhu Yixian, who was the son of the Zhao family spy, Home Master Zhu. If Yang Chun was guilty when he didn't know about it, then after he knew about it, it was meritorious service. Later, Sect Master Li deliberately arranged a few small death row prisoners to assassinate Yang Chun, and then deliberately died in the hands of Yang Chun, which could barely be regarded as evidence of Yang Chun's disrespect for the Xintian sect. However, under the premise of cooperation between the two sides, this kind of thing was known to all parties, and no one would go deep into it. At this time, Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan had to talk about these things, and they had no choice but to do so. Otherwise, it would be unreasonable for a dignified, great principal golden immortal and a peak golden immortal to bully the weak. Chapter 2164. The attack of the Profound Heaven sect was launched very suddenly. With the support of 2 golden immortal masters, the moment the attack began, the mountain protection array of the Chunyang Palace and most of the mountain gate buildings were directly turned into ruins. The offensive, self-exploding magic weapon refined by a golden immortal master was not an ordinary product, and it was not something that could be defended by any bullshit mountain protection array. This was the 4th reconstruction of the Chunyang Palace mountain gate, and it was destroyed again. The disciples of the Chunyang Palace seemed to have become accustomed to the destruction of the mountain gate, because they knew that it would not take long for the destroyed mountain gate to be rebuilt at the fastest speed, and the enemies who attacked the Chunyang Palace would usually be left behind forever. It was not that the disciples of the Chunyang Palace were blindly confident. This was the heavy losses and the enemy's death that brought them confidence. It didn't matter if the mountain gate was destroyed, it could be rebuilt, but the enemy who destroyed their own mountain gate must be left behind. This was the rule. Yang Chun had already made plans to kill the enemy himself. With Yang Chun, Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, and Zhou Xianying, these pure disciples of the Chunyang Palace, there was no need for his other wives and concubines to take action. He believed that the enemy would not be able to get a good result. Not to mention others. Gong Sunling alone could now fight against more than a dozen Xian immortal masters. This was still without using the masters in the mountain river geographical map, only relying on the ability of herself and her life source magic weapon. Even if it was not enough to kill the enemy, it was more than enough to protect herself. However, the palace master forbade Yang Chun to participate in the fight himself. For the true strength of the young palace master of the sect, no one was clearer than the palace master and Wang Yong. After they took the body refining pill, they felt that their cultivation base had advanced by leaps and bounds. It was needless to say what the level of Yang Chun, who refined the body refining pill, was. The relationship between Yang Chun and the Dragon Clan was so close. Two Dragon Clan masters could casually come out, and the enemy could only drink with hatred. Knowing that Yang Chun was powerful, he did not let Yang Chun make a move. It was not that the palace master did not cherish the disciples of the sect. It was precisely because of this that the palace master understood that at any time, if the sect wanted to develop, if they wanted to survive in the dangerous spiritual world, if they wanted to steadily occupy one side in the spiritual world, they must rely on the efforts of all the disciples, not on Yang Chen's family. There were enemies. It was a chance for all disciples to face the enemy together and hone the disciples. Only those who had personally experienced the tempering of blood and fire and personally defeated the enemy were qualified to stand on this land with their heads held high and proudly declare that they were the masters of this land. The attack launched by these people was very sudden, but someone had already tipped them off before they could launch. When these masked attackers who did not reveal their identities suddenly appeared in the Pure Yang Palace, they faced countless Pure Yang Palace disciples who were waiting for them. Among the information sent by the Great Elder, there were also a few secret doors of the cave abodes that they had personally refined. After Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongshuan controlled the Profound Heaven sect, they also found out that the Great Elder had specially refined a sect-level Immortal's cave in exchange for the Zhao family manor in Yang Chen's hands. Naturally, this Immortal's cave was also used by the Profound Heaven sect, including Sect Master Wu. The current Profound Heaven sect's higher-ups firmly believe that there must be a secret door left in the cave dwelling that Grand Elder and the others refined. This was the Xintian sect style of doing things. They firmly believed in it. In this regard, the Great Elder and the others did not hide too much. They directly mentioned a few secret doors that could directly lead to the core of the cave. Of course, the Great Elder's answer was slightly concealed. He only said less than a third of the hidden methods, but this already made Sect Master Wu, Zhou Shenglin, and Zhong Sun very satisfied. These hidden doors were also the main targets of this raid. The news that Yang Chun received included all the secret doors of the Immortal's cave. In fact, from the fact that the Great Elder took the risk to send the news, it could be seen that the Great Elder and the others were not of the same mind as Zhou Shenglin, Zhong Sun, and Sect Master Wu. It was just that due to the restrictions of the sect rules, the 36 celestial stars could only protect the sect master and enjoy a transcendent status, but they could not interfere in the affairs of the sect. Therefore, when this group of masters of the Xintian sect rushed into the core of this cave, they were shocked to find that they did not directly attack the core high level of Chunyang Palace. What was waiting for them was a huge trap that was controlled and could disperse them at any time. Over the years, the Earth Dragon had swallowed countless Xian immortal demon beasts and refined them. Back then, the Earth Dragon had already reached the peak of Xian Immortal. Now, he had almost entered the golden immortal realm. It was only because of his good concealment methods and sufficient preparation that he did not attract the heavenly tribulation. For a mere sect-level cave residence, Dilong had already refined it easily and controlled it freely. These masters of the Xintian sect seemed to have rushed directly into the core cave of Chunyang Palace. But they did not know that they had also rushed into the belly of the Earth Dragon. A group of masters who were only at the Xian Immortal level rushed into the belly of a golden immortal master. The result could be imagined. If it were not for the purpose of the palace master to train the team, these guys would have been captured alive without a chance. Unfortunately, it was not a good time to fall out with the Xintian sect, especially when they knew that the other party had two masters from the immortal world, and one of them was a great principal golden immortal. Therefore, these people could only die, and they must not be left alive. These disciples of the Xintian sect, who had been sentenced to death by the sect, had sadly become the targets of the Chunyang Palace training team. Under the intentional or unintentional level suppression of the Earth Dragon, their combat effectiveness could only be exerted at most 70%. Then they fell into the vast sea of disciples of Chunyang Palace, and there was not a single wave. Then there was only a pile of corpses. Chunyang Palace also suffered heavy losses. When the attack was launched, a large number of almost thousands of disciples were directly attacked by the magic weapon refined by Zhou Sheng. They did not even have the chance to resist, and their bodies and souls were destroyed. No one knew that this was deliberately arranged by the palace master. They had already discovered a group of disloyal or ulterior motives of other sect spies. Of course, the truly loyal disciples were not without losses. In the battle with those disciples of the Xintian sect who rushed into the core cave, they also lost hundreds of disciples at all levels. But as the palace master said, this was the price that must be paid for growing up in blood and fire. Only if every disciple of Chunyang Palace dared to sacrifice for the sect and was willing to sacrifice for the sect, in the future, the Chunyang Palace could truly stand on the land of Sunset Rock and Linyang River and could truly control this land. For the first time, Chunyang Palace announced the news of the attack on the sect's mountain gate and announced the loss of their own sect. At the same time, the bodies of the attackers were also made public. As soon as the news came out, it caused a big uproar in the spiritual world. No one knew that Yang Chun had also arranged a small trap for the Xintian sect in this attack. They believed that when the time came, Sect Master Wu, Zhou Shenglin, and Zhong Sun would be inexplicably surprised. Chapter 2165. Among the death row disciples of the mysterious heaven sect, 3 of them had been tampered with by Yang Chun. The real corpses of the 3 Xian Immortal experts were replaced with the corpses of 2 Three River Alliance disciples and 1 10,000 Demon Sect disciple. This was carefully selected. Whether it was the cultivation method or the appearance, they were all very similar. The Life Source Magic Treasure was the original Life Source Magic Treasure of the 3 Xian Immortal experts. After the cultivator died, the Life Source Magic Treasure became a blank magic treasure and could easily be sent to another cultivator's body. Similarly, the appearance of the corpses had been modified by Old High. If one wasn't a real expert, they wouldn't be able to discover the secret. And the experts who could discover it had to be at least rank 7 Xian Immortal. In other words, ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to see that it was a disguise. They would naturally think that these people were the death row experts of the mysterious heaven sect. This was the effect that Yang Chun deliberately wanted. If it was easily discovered by others, then wouldn't it seem like child's play? It'd be too easy for others to see through it. It was this kind of disguise that ordinary people wouldn't be able to discover, but real experts will be able to see through it. This was the highest level of disguise. Moreover, this kind of disguise would give people the illusion that when these people were alive, even if they had rank 7 Xian Immortal cultivation, other cultivators wouldn't be able to see through it. Those experts who discovered the disguise would definitely feel strange. Why were there experts from the Three River Alliance and 10,000 Demon Sect in the mysterious Heaven Sects team? And why were they hidden so seamlessly? It has to be said that the remaining disciples of the Three River Alliance, Holocaust Sect, and 10,000 Demon Sect had disappeared into thin air. Everyone guessed that he had either returned to the Zhao clan, or that he had been accepted by a large sect, but was kept a secret. The former was more likely. After all, These three sects were supported by the Zhao family, so the possibility of them coexisting peacefully with other sects wasn't high. However, this possibility couldn't be completely ruled out. Everyone found experts from the Three River Alliance and 10,000 Demon Sect among the disciples who participated in the attack. This meant that the mysterious Heaven sect was more or less suspicious. Some things couldn't be investigated too deeply. If one did, they would discover some terrifying facts. For example, why did the mysterious Heaven sect always seize the initiative in the battle against the Zhao family? The biggest problem was why Sect Master Li, who was doing well in the mysterious Heaven sect, suddenly announced that he would go into closed-door cultivation and be replaced by an acting sect master. And just as the sect master was changed, Chunyang Palace was attacked by the so-called prisoner disciples of Xintian sect, and there were people from the Three River Alliance and the Thousand Demons sect. As long as one thought about how Sect Master Chui of the Five Element sect was almost usurped and how Hall Master Zhu of the mysterious Heaven sect almost killed Sect Master Wang. The change of power in the mysterious Heaven sect under Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan's control was filled with the smell of conspiracy. In particular, the three core elders of the Xintian sect were killed. Among them, Hall Master Lu, who was in charge of the law enforcement hall, was also killed by Zhou Sheng on the spot. The prisoners of the Xintian sect were free to kill their way to Chunyang Palace. Even the almighty Immortals could not explain such a fact. All the major sects would definitely secretly doubt the change of power in the Xintian sect, but they would only doubt it in their hearts and would not ask. Even if they asked, with Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan's current arrogant posture in the Xintian sect, they would not bother to explain anything to some juniors in the spiritual world. In short, misunderstandings were produced step by step, and the cracks would slowly widen. All the major sects would miss the harmonious relationship that Sect Master Li had restored with all parties when he was in control of the Xintian sect, but they would gradually distance themselves from the current Xintian sect controlled by Sect Master Wu. The reality was as Yangshan expected. When Chunyang Palace announced with righteous indignation that all the enemies who participated in the attack had been annihilated and the corpses were taken out to show to the public, many people recognized the origins of the attackers. This time, the attack on Chunyang Palace was unprecedented. The powerful self-exploding attack magic weapon refined by Zhou Sheng instantly turned the exposed mountain gate of Chunyang Palace, together with the mountain-protecting formation and thousands of disciples, into ashes. Not only that, but this time, the attack was also aimed at the cave residents' magic treasure. Many people knew that Yang Chun had bought a lot of cave residents' magic treasure some time ago, which also meant that Chunyang Palace was likely to set up a real cave residence in the sect inside the sect. But Zhou Sheng's magic weapon included all the cave residents' magic treasures within the range of the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace. With this self-explosion, no matter where the cave residence was set up, even if it was carried by a disciple, it would be directly shattered by the powerful attack. It would directly appear. Now, on the ruins of Chunyang Palace, there were no less than thousands of fragments of cave residences and medicine gardens. The things inside were scattered on the ground, and it was a scene of devastation. However, Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan did not expect that the real cave residence of the sect in Chunyang Palace was not outside, but in the belly of the Earth Dragon. The Earth Dragon of the Golden Immortal Realm was originally a supreme master who could hide his whereabouts. Coupled with his strong defensive ability and the distance from the Real Mountain Gate, the magic weapon refined by Zhou Sheng did not hurt him at all. And the real cave residence of the sect in Chunyang Palace was also unharmed. The first elder and the others knew the existence of the Earth Dragon, but they were not obliged to say it, especially when Zhou Sheng, Lin Zongxuan, and Sect Master were going to destroy Chunyang Palace. The 36 elders of the Celestial Dipper strictly abided by the rules of the sect. They only protected the sect master and never intervened in the affairs of the sect. Their well-behaved performance made Zhou Sheng and Lin Zongxuan very satisfied. Zhou Sheng and the others originally thought that as long as the attack of his self-explosion magic weapon was launched, whether it was at the mountain gate or in the cave residence, the disciples of Chunyang Palace would be killed, or at least seriously injured. As long as those prisoner disciples were launched, they would go to clean up the mess and then plunder the wealth. Unexpectedly, the reality gave them a hard slap in the face. Not only did they not kill or injure the masters of Chunyang Palace, but they also killed everyone. For these prisoners, whether it was Zhou Xinglin, Zhongxuan, or Sect Master Wu, they did not feel the slightest pity. If they died, they died. They were people who deserved to die. But they could not bear the fact that none of those guys escaped and were all killed. This meant that the Xiantian sect violated the great oath of the Heart Demon made by Sect Master Wang and attacked Chunyang Palace. The crime of treachery, not to mention Sect Master Wu Zhousheng and Lin Zhongxuan. Even the Jade Emperor, who was now in charge of the Heavenly Court, could not afford to bear it. Zhousheng and Lin Zhongxuan thought that since they had done it once, they would immediately do it again. If they personally took action, they believed that Chunyang Palace would definitely be able to catch them. But this idea was desperately dissuaded by Sect Master Wu. What they needed to do now was not how to deal with Chunyang Palace, but to quickly disassociate the Xiantian sect from this attack. Otherwise, no one would believe in the Xiantian sect in the future. The Taishamen in the mortal world had been destroyed once, and the Xiantian sect in the spiritual world could not become the public enemy of the world again. Chapter 2166. Chunyang Palace once again became the center of attention of all the sect in the spiritual world. This time, the incident was really too big and even involved the first Dao sect, Xiantian sect. Some things couldn't be hidden in any case. What's more, Chunyang Palace didn't want to hide it at all. Upon receiving the news, the major sect sent their masters to come as soon as possible. Chunyang Palace was attacked, and it was the major sect that was slapped in the face. How could it not make the senior leaders of the major sect angry? The first thing the masters of the sect rushed to Chunyang Palace was to see the bodies of the attackers. Then they discovered the identity of these attackers. Although many of the disciples of Xiantian sect were claimed to have violated the rules of Xiantian sect and were waiting to be executed, only Xiantian sect itself knew the truth. Everyone ate their glutinous rice dumplings in silence, knowing what to do. Looking at the scene where Xiantian sect was destroyed, the masters of all parties were a little dumbfounded. This level of attack was by no means what an ordinary Xian Immortal Master could do. At least the attack of a peak Golden Immortal, or even a great Principal Golden Immortal. It was not just ordinary masters who came to the scene of Chunyang Palace. The Qinquan sect was not far away. This time, the Golden Immortal Master who had just come to the lower realm also rushed here. He only took a glance and gave a conclusion. How did you survive this level of attack? The master of the Qinquan sect didn't think much about it and asked the palace master this question casually. It was okay if he didn't mention it. When it was mentioned, the palace master's face was full of pain and hatred. Our sect has been destroyed 3 times before. This is the 4th time. The palace master gritted his teeth and replied, "Decades ago, the young master of our sect, Yang Chun, bought dozens of sect-level immortals caves from all over the world. In order to ensure the safety of our disciples, we used these dozens of sect-level immortals caves to escape this time. This time, the sect-level immortals caves were directly destroyed and 13 of them were seriously injured. 6 of them were seriously injured. The head of the palace couldn't help but feel distressed. This was 19 sect-level immortals caves. At this moment, the expression of Palace Master Zhang Jiao could be called the best actor. This is to protect the disciples of my sect. Otherwise, our sect would have been annihilated by that attack. Palace Master Zhang Jiao answered miserably. His expression was in place, and his tone was moderate, which could definitely attract enough sympathy from those who listened. Not only did he answer, but the master of the palace even showed the fragments of the destroyed sect, Level Immortals Cave, and the 6 seriously damaged sect, Level Immortals Cave. These were all the credit of the Mountain River geographical map, which could easily produce enough fragments. In any case, it was going to be detonated in the demon world, so he took it out for the various experts to see first. This was all proof, and it could not be faked. The 6 seriously damaged Immortals Cave were also exchanged from the hands of the major sections. The original owners of those Immortals cave could recognize them at a glance. Chunyang Palace did not fake this at all. Even if it was a master of the Golden Immortal level, when he heard that 19 sect level Immortals caves were directly destroyed, there was a distressed expression on his face. This also perfectly explained why Chunyang Palace could still retain the vast majority of disciples under that level of attack. Even the Golden Immortal Master of Chinquan's sect, after hearing the method used by Chunyang Palace, had to admit that this was indeed possible. At the same time, the Golden Immortal Master had a sigh in his heart. This Chunyang Palace was really willing to pay for the safety of their own disciples. The sect level Immortals cave had so many nested layers. The full blow of the great principal Golden Immortal could be blocked, and they could come up with this method. But no one doubted that Chunyang Palace had any artificial suspicion. After all, everyone knew that what the Palace Master said was the truth. The mountain gate of Chunyang Palace had been destroyed 3 times, and this was the 4th time it was destroyed. After suffering so many lessons, even a fool knew to protect their own core mountain gate better. That was, Chunyang Palace could use this kind of method. Each major sect had countless masters. How could an ordinary attack cause any damage to the mountain gate? Poor Chunyang Palace. This time the loss was great. However, all the cultivators present were glad for Chunyang Palace. Fortunately, Chunyang Palace had a young palace master who could collect so many sect level Immortals caves. Other small sect wanted to be so safe, but they didn't have the financial resources, and they didn't have the connections. They couldn't buy a sect level Immortals cave with spirit stones. Only Yang Chun had this ability. These attackers were very strong, and they directly chased us into the deep Immortals cave. At this moment, the face of the Palace Master also showed a trace of ruthlessness. Our sect has lost 19 Immortals caves, and it doesn't matter if we lose one more. We blew up an Immortals cave and killed most of them. The remaining masters were also seriously injured. Although our sect is small, there are also a few loyal Xian Immortal disciples, so we were able to keep them all. In the future, if there are more enemies, Chunyang Palace is not afraid of being exhausted, not afraid of burning jade and stone together. We will never compromise. In line with the words of the Palace Master, the fragments of another Immortals cave were displayed. If the elders of the mysterious Heaven sect were here, they could recognize at a glance that this was the one they gave to Yang Chun. Of course, without the arrival of the elders of the mysterious Heaven sect, several masters of the mysterious Heaven sect had already recognized the technique of their sect. Even at the cost of losing one more sect level Immortals cave, they had to keep these thousands of invading enemies. This kind of courage had probably surpassed many sect sections. It must be known that it was a sect level Immortals cave, which was at least 100,000 miles. How terrifying would it be when it blew up? Those prisoners of the mysterious Heaven sect probably never dreamed that there would be such a ruthless sect. Strictly speaking, they died under wealth, at least in the mouth of the head of the palace. Chunyang Palace used 20 sect level Immortals caves in exchange for the complete annihilation of the invading enemies. This business could not be said to be worth it, but it was a wake-up call for all those who wanted to attack Chunyang Palace. Although Chunyang Palace was small, not everyone could bully them. When necessary, Chunyang Palace did not care about burning jade and stone together. This was the information that the Palace Master really wanted to reveal to the outside world. The mountain gate could be built and destroyed. Even if dozens of sect level Immortals caves were abandoned and thousands of disciples were killed or injured, Chunyang Palace would never give up on the enemy. Until this moment, when the Palace Master said the words of uncompromising, Chunyang Palace was truly rooted in the hearts of the cultivators in the spiritual world. It was no longer a small sect that could only survive by relying on the words of the various sect. The masters of all the sect listened to the words of the Palace Master, and all of them were thoughtful. Especially among the masters of the mysterious Heaven sect, there were 1 or 2 who were deeply touched. Chapter 21:67. Since Chunyang Palace was not destroyed, Xintian sect naturally had to send a few people to clean up the mess, and one or two of them knew about it. Of course, they knew how those prisoners entered the cave residence, because the cave residence was originally made by the 36 Tiangang masters of their sect, and a back door was left. As long as they used the right technique, they could enter immediately. The truth was just as they had thought. They had definitely entered, and they had definitely entered the core. But they couldn't stand the pure Yang Palace. These guys were now so brutal, and directly detonated the Immortal's cave. The power of the explosion of the sect, level cave residence, was estimated to have killed disciples below the Xian Immortal level directly. The remaining dozens of Xian Immortal masters must have been seriously injured, so they were killed by the disciples of Chunyang Palace. Everything seemed to be normal. Zhou Shenglin and Zhong Sun were right. Zhou Shenglin's magic weapon attack did kill many disciples of Chunyang Palace, and it also detonated many cave residences. The Tiangang elders were right. There was indeed a back door in the cave residence. There seemed to be nothing wrong with what Chunyang Palace did. They simply detonated the cave residence. But these prisoners who had already died did not know where to go to complain about their grievances. No one had expected that Chunyang Palace had so many sect-level cave residences. With dozens of layers nested, they could even block the attack of a peak golden immortal. It cannot be said that no one had expected it. Yang Chun had been buying cave residences everywhere in a high-profile manner in those years, which was almost known to all. It was not a secret that all parties had taken action, but no one could have thought that Chunyang Palace would play like this. Didn't Yang Chun say that the purchase of cave residences was to improve the power of his wife's magic weapon? Why did he use it in the sect? Shameless. The people in the Xintian sect wanted to cry, but had no tears. The consequence of Yang Chen's unconventional play was that they were in trouble. There was no need to check the identities of the corpses inside. Several other sect members recognized many of them at a glance. While the people of the Black Heaven sect were suffering, the people of the other major sect were also suffering. It should be noted that many people died in Chunyang Palace this time. There were thousands of disciples at different levels in the Mountain Gate. With just one attack from the mysterious Heaven sect's prisoners, the thousands of disciples didn't even have a chance to escape. They were all turned into pieces. The Chunyang Palace had sorted out the identities of the dead and injured disciples. If the sect asked for it, they would show it to them. Soon, some of the core figures of these sect found that the elites placed in Chunyang Palace by their sect had all died in this attack. These were the elite disciples carefully cultivated by the sect of various sections. It took them a lot of effort to get to the middle and high level of Chunyang Palace. They were able to serve in the Orthodox Mountain Gate of Chunyang Palace and inquire about the news. In the end, this attack was all gone. All parties only knew about their own manpower and did not know the arrangements of other sect. Therefore, they did not know that the dead disciples were all cultivators who were found to be problematic by the palace master. They only knew the fact that all the masters arranged by their own sect were killed by the mysterious Heaven sect at one time. Although it was inevitable that deaths and injuries were carried out in the implementation of this undercover task, if they died in the process of passing messages or inquiring about secrets, it could be regarded as a worthy death. But what was the point of being killed, directly like cutting grass to kill rabbits? The death of these elite disciples had no value at all. Although the people of the mysterious Heaven sect knew that the identity of these prisoners could not be hidden, they repeatedly stressed that the original hall master of the law enforcement hall of the sect had colluded with the Zhao family, and the original hall master Liu had been killed. Who would believe this? When did hall master Liu get killed? It was not long after Zhou Sheng and Su Zongxuan came to the mortal world. Although the small sect of Chunyang Palace did not know what happened to the mysterious Heaven sect, the change of the sect master was a big thing. How could the mysterious Heaven sect not greet the major sect? Was it possible to bring up something that happened more than a year ago to the present? Even if it was Hall Master Lu's idea, why didn't these prisoners cause trouble within the mysterious Heaven sect? Why did they come to Chunyang Palace? Moreover, if there was really a problem with Hall Master Lu's identity at the time, he could have done something when he brought Zhou Sheng and Su Zongxuan to the mortal world. they would have definitely died without knowing why. Would they have the chance to kill Hall Master Lu? No one was a fool and could not be fooled so easily. However, the people of the mysterious Heaven sect knew this, but they had to say it. Otherwise, they would not be able to explain themselves. What was ridiculous was that even though the mysterious Heaven sect said this, the other sects still had to accept it. At least for now, they had to accept it even if they had to pinch their noses. Who didn't understand the struggle for power? They knew that there was definitely something fishy going on here. However, since Hall Master Lu and the others had failed and died, if the major sect did not want to fall out with the mysterious Heaven sect at this time and give the Zhao family an opportunity, they had to accept this matter. Another thing that everyone was worried about was that the mysterious Heaven sect was too generous this time. They had directly sent a great principal golden immortal, which was unexpected to everyone. It was obviously unwise to fall out with the mysterious Heaven sect. Another thing that couldn't be said was that the change of sect master in the mysterious Heaven sect was too strange. It was so strange that people had to wonder if the Zhao family had intervened. While they were busy dealing with the Zhao family, the sect master, who had contributed the most in dealing with the Zhao family, was replaced. Anyone would have such suspicions. There was the Zhao family in the mortal world and the spiritual realm. How could the celestial realm not have the Zhao family? No one dared to say that Zhou Shenlin and Zhong Sun were spies that the Zhao family had placed in the mysterious Heaven sect. Before this matter was clarified, they must not act rashly. Therefore, the attack on Chunyang Palace was arranged by Hall Master Lu early on with ulterior motives. This was the conclusion of all the sect investigations. The mysterious Heaven sect even thanked Chunyang Palace for helping the mysterious Heaven sect eradicate a group of unworthy disciples. As for the loss of Chunyang Palace, the mysterious Heaven sect is magnanimous and will compensate for it. Except for the loss of human lives, all the material losses, the mysterious Heaven sect accepted. Because the plan was not thorough enough, they did not expect the cautiousness and ruthlessness of Chunyang Palace, so that the attack on Chunyang Palace planned by the sect Master Wu, Master Zhou, and Master Su ended in failure. Not only that, they originally had the idea of attacking Chunyang Palace and Yang Chen's wealth, but now they had to bite their teeth and pinch their noses to give away a large amount of wealth. Yang Chen and the head of the palace almost laughed their stomachs. They couldn't believe that there was such a good thing. Not to mention anything else, the 20 sect level caves were simply made by the mountain river geographical map. They were originally intended to explode, but the mysterious Heaven sect was still willing to pay for this illusory loss. If they had known this earlier, they should have said that they lost 30 sect level caves, which was a big loss. Chapter 2168. The major sects didn't care how the Xintian sect dealt with the aftermath. Anyway, at most, they just had to pay some money. This level of loss was a serious blow to the Chunyang Palace, but for the Xintian sect, it was just a drizzle. Originally, things should have come to an end. If the masters of the major sect didn't have the golden immortal master of the Qinquan sect, others didn't see any problems with the bodies of the 3 Xian immortal masters, but they couldn't hide from the eyes of the golden immortal master. Contact a few trustworthy sects and get those 3 corpses. The golden immortal master didn't make a move on the spot, but told an accompanying elder of his sect. Hearing his grandmaster's words, the elder's expression did not change, but his head indiscernibly nodded. Then, he walked to the side as if nothing had happened, and began to exchange pleasantries with the experts of other sects he was familiar with. The elder of the Qinquan sect was indeed a powerful person. In a short time, he pulled the 8 super sect to advance and retreat together. The meaning of the golden immortal master. Everyone understood that there must be some problems that they hadn't found. If the 8 super sects wanted to sneak away a few corpses, it would be a simple matter. The people of the profound Heaven sect were still struggling to calculate the losses with the head of the palace, and the 3 corpses had been quietly taken away. It was not a big deal that 3 bodies were missing from the scene. The Chunyang Palace had already said that the self-destruction of the Immortal's Cave had severely injured these attackers. Since it was the self-destruction of the Immortal's Cave, a few bodies were blown up and couldn't be found. This was definitely the most powerful reason, and there was no place to refute. In a secret Immortal's cave carried by a master of the Five Elements sect, the masters of the Eighth sect gathered together. Not far from them, on the ground, were the three bodies that the Golden Immortal Masters thought were problematic. They are indeed masters of the Shintian sect. The three life source magic weapons taken from these three bodies were very complete, and they were absolutely worthy of their identity. In this regard, the Chunyang Palace was very kind and did not confiscate them because they were spoils of war. Of course, they had already recognized the identity of these people and did not dare to offend the Shintian sect too much. At first, the Golden Immortal Master didn't directly say the answer, but let the masters of the Eighth sect study it themselves. So there was the previous scene. Fortunately, there were still masters who came this time, and there were two who surpassed the 7th grade of Xian Immortal. However, they only vaguely felt that there was something wrong, but they couldn't tell what was wrong. This was Yang Chen's credit. After Old Hai's transformation, Yang Chen directly let Xiao Tian swallow any aura that might exist after Old Hai started. But this also caused the parts that could be detected by the 7th grade Xian Immortals, Xian Immortal, Xian Master, to become more hidden. After everyone had expressed their opinions, and the two experts had also expressed their doubts, the Golden Immortal expert personally stepped forward. He first gave the two experts who felt that there was a problem a reassuring look, then reached out his hand and lightly tapped on the foreheads of the three corpses. With a tap of his finger, ripples appeared on the faces of the three corpses, and they began to rapidly change. By the time the Golden Immortal finished the third point, the first corpse's transformation was complete. Soon, the second and third corpses also underwent the same transformation. On the Golden Immortal's finger, there were three thin, transparent, mask-like things. The faces of the three corpses changed in front of everyone. Everyone knew that there must be a big problem here. After carefully examining the three new faces, someone quickly determined the new identities of the three corpses. Two from the Three River Alliance, one from the Thousand Demon Sect. The three corpses were all Xian Immortal Masters. They were definitely not unknown. With so many masters here, they must have seen them before. Everyone's faces sank. The experts of the Three River Alliance, Holocaust Sect, and Thousand Demon Sect disappeared into thin air. No one knew where they went. These three cultivators should have disappeared as well, but now they appeared in front of everyone. They were the cultivators who participated in the attack on Chunyang Palace. This was a big problem. Did these three return to the Zhao family and enter the Shintian sect in disguise, or were they already subdued by the Shintian sect? No matter which possibility it was a big problem. Of course, there was also the possibility that there were spies from the Zhao family hidden in the Shintian sect. If it was the former, with the Zhao family spies in the Shintian sect, the various sects wouldn't be able to escape. The second possibility was very high, but these people had been controlled by the Zhao family for many years. How could they easily surrender to the Shintian sect? The third possibility was not low either. After all, the change of the Shintian sect master was really strange. People couldn't help but wonder if there was a conspiracy. This kind of thing shouldn't be common. It's the skin of an extremely rare demon beast. Have any of you seen it before? The Golden Immortal gently twisted the three transparent masks in his hand and reminded everyone. Everyone's spirits were lifted. After carefully feeling the three masks one by one, they all revealed a thoughtful expression. I remember, after a while, someone finally spoke. As soon as he opened his mouth, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Back then, when Sect Master Li of the mysterious Heaven Sect exposed Hall Master Zhu, one of his crimes was to use a magic treasure made from a demonic beast to plot against Sect Master Wang and the other core elders. Later, the Shintian sect specially sent disciples to the various sects to verify this and helped us dig out a few hidden spies from the Zhao family. Seeing that everyone was listening carefully, the Golden Immortal sect continued. The aura on this thing seems to be that of the demon beast at that time. He was the only one present who had seen that kind of demon beast. The others knew about it, but they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, so no one was sure. Don't say anything. Immediately go and verify it in secret. The Golden Immortal sect master waved his hand, and the 3 masks broke into countless pieces. Every master present got a piece. As for these 3 corpses, leave them with this old man for now. When you need them in the future, you can come to this old man to take a look. The Golden Immortal sect master knew that there was no conclusion for now. However, finding something suspicious was a big deal. The verification would have to wait for everyone to return. Could it be the arrangement of Chunyang Palace? Someone still raised this doubt. Anyway, since things had happened, all parties were suspects. This method is very clever. It's impossible to execute without the cultivation of a peak Xian Immortal. The Golden Immortal sect master directly pointed out the key point. Secretly verify if there are any peak Xian Immortal experts in Chunyang Palace. Chapter 2169. Master Yang is on good terms with the Dragon Clan, and there is at least one expert of the Dragon Clan whose cultivation is above the peak of Golden Immortal. Not many people knew that Yang Chun had helped Sect Master Chui in the 5 Elements sect, but there were still 1 or 2 people in the 5 Elements sect who knew about it. At this time, it was a matter of great importance, so he could not care about anything else and said it out loud. In addition, the dragon puppet controlled by the Morong sisters is also at the level of the middle stage of Golden Immortal. The dragon puppet was not a secret, so it was not too much to say it out at this time. It's not the method of the Dragon Clan. The Golden Immortal shook his head directly. There is no trace of the Dragon Clan's aura on it. If the dragon puppet makes a move, it will also be stained. When the Dragon Clan made a move, the unique aura could not be hidden. In addition, the proud Dragon Clan would never bother to hide their aura. Don't rush to a conclusion. Take your time to investigate. After denying that the Dragon Clan made a move, the Golden Immortal did not immediately come to a conclusion. From this point of view, the master of Qinquan sect could be regarded as a reliable person. Some people were openly investigating, and some were secretly investigating, but this did not mean much to Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace. They already knew what they could know, and they could not know what they didn't want them to know. In short, the mine that Yang Chun wanted to bury had been buried, and it was now time to detonate it. Chunyang Palace was going to be rebuilt again, and this was the 5th time it had been rebuilt in the spiritual realm. But after the news spread this time, it shocked some sect members. Not for anything else, but because Chunyang Palace dared to fight and was willing to sacrifice 20 sect-level cave residences to blow themselves up without thinking about it. This kind of courage and means was not something they could afford. This also reminded those who wanted to make a move on Chunyang Palace. Before making a move on Chunyang Palace, they had to think about whether they could break the nest of dozens of sect-level cave residences at once, and whether they could withstand the power of the explosion of dozens of sect-level cave residences. Of course, the financial resources of Chunyang Palace also surprised all the practitioners. But when he thought about it, it was normal. Yang Chun sold dozens of pills per pill recipe, and any divine dwelling jade was as expensive as it could get. Add to that the fact that Yang Chun was constantly selling pills, and it was not strange that he had accumulated so much wealth. When one's wealth reached a certain level and had a certain ability to protect himself, that would be a kind of super strength. They were not afraid of others coveting their wealth, but they could use this wealth to buy the heads of the 6 sons, who knew how many enemies they had. If one did not have a deep hatred for them, it would be best not to provoke such a sect if one could avoid it. The mysterious heaven sects probing this time was like kicking an iron plate. Although for Sect Master Wu, Zhou Shenlin, and Zhong Sun, the death of those condemned disciples was not a loss, but the loss of being forced to admit to Chunyang Palace really made them vomit blood. It took 36 Celestial Dipper Realm Masters more than 100 years to refine a sect-level immortal cave. According to the calculation of 20 sect-level immortal caves, there would be more than 700 Celestial Dipper Realm Masters who spent 100 years to refine it. It must be known that the Celestial Dipper Realm Masters had an extremely high cultivation base. At the time of refining, they took an average of 2 millennium pills. If these were counted, it would take thousands of Xian immortal masters 200 years to refine it. If these were converted into spirit stones, perhaps all the spirit stones in the mysterious Heaven Sect's inventory would not be enough to compensate. Fortunately, Chunyang Palace was very generous. The palace master waved his hand in an unusually generous manner. It didn't matter. If it was not enough, they could owe it first. Chunyang Palace didn't care about those trifles for the time being. They just needed to take it slowly. But the more they did this, the more ugly the face of the mysterious Heaven Sect was. Even a small Chunyang Palace could despise the mysterious Heaven Sect here. How could that be? How could Sect Master Wu tolerate this kind of thing happening? Even if he had to sell everything, he had to grit his teeth and pay this compensation in one go. If you ask me, what's the point of admitting those losses? Lin Zhongxuan was very dissatisfied with this decision of Sect Master Wu. When the Golden Immortal Masters took out such a large amount of wealth, they would also feel pain. Those are the traitors of the mysterious Heaven Sect. The sin is also pushed to the surnamed Lu. Why do we have to do more? Because there are no fools in the spiritual realm. Even Sect Master Wu was irritated by Lin Zhongxuan's words. He finally couldn't help but refute. Now all parties seem to accept this explanation on the surface, but do they really accept it? They were all thousand-year-old foxes. There was no need to play a strange story with each other on this. Although there was no conclusive evidence, how could the other sect not see the inside story? Did they really think that people were fools? If the mysterious Heaven Sect didn't admit this, they would never be able to sincerely cooperate with other sect in the future. Sect Master Wu really had a headache. One was Zhou Sheng, and the other was Ling Zhongxuan. The two grandmasters had high cultivation, but they really didn't know anything about managing the affairs of the sect. They couldn't figure out why the Immortal Realm sect would send such two brainless people to the mortal realm. On this point, Sect Master Wu had wronged the grandmasters above. They had specially selected two combat experts to come to the mortal realm. They thought that they should have self-awareness. As long as they listened to the sect master's orders and won, it would be fine. They didn't expect that the first thing these two did when they came down was to cripple the sect master who was doing a good job. They even directly killed 3 core elders. The feeling of being the retired emperor was simply too comfortable, especially the feeling of having the sect master listen to everything. It was much more comfortable than having to listen to the core higher-ups when they were in the spiritual realm. Chunyang Palace can't be easily moved for a long time. Sect Master Wu finally expressed his impatience and dissatisfaction. If the two grandmasters don't want our sect to be besieged by the other sect again, so serious? Zhou Sheng didn't think that there would be such serious consequences. He originally thought that, taking the opportunity of this compensation, he could directly kill the core higher-ups of Chunyang Palace and take control of the entire Chunyang Palace. With his identity, Chunyang Palace would have to give him face and welcome him with all the higher-ups, right? Chunyang Palace is now an ally. Sect Master Wu had to explain patiently. Who would dare to be on good terms with our sect if they attacked our allies? Although we put all the blame on Lu, no one will fully believe it. Sect Master Wu continued to explain, but we will also compensate for the losses, which is different. This is our sect's responsible attitude towards our allies. Even if a traitorous disciple commits a crime, we will also be responsible for compensation. At most, we will chase and kill the traitorous disciple. Paying a small amount of spirit stones can leave a good reputation. Why not? Under Sect Master Wu's patient explanation, Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan finally stopped insisting and nodded in agreement. Although it was painful, the reputation of Xintian's sect was more important. Chapter 2170. Sect Master Wu could see that with Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan, the two experts in the sect, he, as the sect master, was of no use at all. No one listened to his words. If he wanted to completely control the sect, he had to send the two ancestors far away. We still don't know what is in the core of the trial ground. Sect Master Wu began to talk about business. In order to prevent the Zhao family from launching a sudden attack, two ancestors, should we immediately contact the major sect and gather the experts to take a look there? The current situation was very clear. The Zhao family's nest was in the trial ground, and they were temporarily in a stalemate with the major sect. However, the secrets in the core had yet to be excavated by the major sect. This time, the experts from the major sects had come to the lower realm for this big goal. When Sect Master Wu, Zhou Shenglin, and Zhongxuan talked about this important matter, the two of them also knew the priority, so they nodded in agreement. Sect Master Wu immediately contacted the major sect to arrange this matter, and then sent his confidant to personally send the compensation from Mysterious Heaven's sect to Chunyang Palace. Since they couldn't destroy Chunyang Palace at once, they had to be on good terms first. The sect still needed Yang Chen's elixir, and they also needed Yang Chen's divine dwelling jade. However, when the confidant was about to set off, Lin Zhongxuan didn't know what he was thinking, but he actually interfered again and insisted on going with them. Helpless Sect Master Wu had no choice but to plead not to have any conflict with Chunyang Palace. After dealing with the Zhao family, he could clean up Chunyang Palace as he wanted. These things that were given out could still be taken back with interest. This explanation barely satisfied Lin Zhongxuan, so he agreed. However, it was necessary to go with them to see Yang Chun for himself. Watching Lin Zhongxuan and his confidant leave, Sect Master Wu's heart was extremely miserable. What was going on? He could only pray that Ancestor Lin would lower his head and not mess things up. Otherwise, Mysterious Heaven's sect would really lose all its face. Sometimes things were like this, what they were afraid of would happen. Sect Master Wu couldn't go to Chunyang Palace in person. His identity was also doomed to be unable to visit in person and send compensation. And with the addition of a Grandmaster that even Sect Master Wu could not control in the team, it was destined to cause trouble. When the group arrived at Chunyang Palace was still in ruins, and countless fragments had not been cleaned up. However, Chunyang Palace also knew that this was not good, so it set up a 1,000-mile cave residence not far from the original mountain gate, and temporarily served as the temporary mountain gate of Chunyang Palace to receive visitors. The person in charge of the Mysterious Heaven sect didn't want to make a big fuss. He wanted to contact them quietly, express his goodwill and apologize, and then leave. But how could Ancestor Lin be satisfied with this? It was necessary to let the senior officials of Chunyang Palace come forward. Even if they couldn't take action, they had to leave a deep impression on them and let them know that Xintian's sect was not to be trifled with. The intention of Ancestor Lin was quickly implemented. The person in charge of Xintian's sect did not reveal the true identity of Ancestor Lin, but he still gave him a reclusive elder who had been in retreat for many years. His status was respected, and he personally came to Chunyang Palace. Chunyang Palace was also very cooperative. From the head of the palace to several core elders in the sect, all of them were present. According to the etiquette of the younger generation, they greeted Ancestor Lin and gave him enough face. Regardless of whether they were willing or not, Lin Zhongxuan's age and seniority could indeed make most people willing to call themselves juniors. "Where is your young palace master, Yang Chun? Why didn't he come and greet him?" Lin Zhongxuan took advantage of his seniority, and even in Chunyang Palace, he was extremely arrogant. When he didn't see Yang Chun, he immediately began to nitpick. Yang Chun has not yet held a formal position in the sect, and there is no place for him on this occasion. The head of the palace was neither humble nor arrogant. Since the predecessor wants to see him, it is also his blessing. This younger generation junior will call him over. Lin Zhongxuan himself put on airs, but he forgot this. Listening to the explanation of the head of the palace, he was a little embarrassed. However, he enjoyed this kind of submission when he went to other sect. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with what he had just done. He was a dignified elder of the golden immortal realm, and he wanted to see a younger generation junior. Was it still his fault? It's just like that. After a while, Yang Chun rushed over and also respectfully saluted the predecessor. Lin Zhongxuan slowly waited for Yang Chun to finish saluting and then casually waved his hand on the spot and gave such an evaluation. As soon as this sentence came out, the faces of all the people present changed. The people of Chunyang Palace didn't say it. Even a few people of Xintian's sect were complaining in their hearts. How could he come to give people compensation? It was clear that he came to smash the scene. The only two people who didn't change their faces were Lin Zhongxuan and Yang Chen himself. He was still smiling, as if Lin Zhongxuan was not talking about him. He even replied, "It is as the predecessor said. This younger generation junior was arrogant before. Thank you for reminding me." Oomph. After waiting for a while, Lin Zhongxuan snorted. "You are sensible." After saying this, no one knew what he was thinking. Lin Zhongxuan actually added another sentence. "Do you know why we are here? Do you know what to do?" This younger generation junior understands. The smile on Yang Chen's face became more and more prosperous. He nodded and said, "It's not a big deal. The culprit has been executed. How can I ask for other things? Sect Master Wu is too polite. The compensation, Chunyang Palace really doesn't deserve it. Please take it back." On this side, the representative sent by Xiantian sect was already dumbfounded. His own master had already said so, and Yang Chun had also answered so. What else could he do about this? But wasn't this too much of a scam? Grandmaster Lin, oh Grandmaster Lin, you can't do things like this. You have already brought compensation to their door, yet you still force them not to accept it. Why bother? It was better not to say what they were here for in the first place. This time, they had offended them greatly. Lin Zhongxuan didn't think so. In this world of the spiritual realm, there are still cultivators who dare to offend him. It was clear that when Chunyang Palace saw the martial arts master in person, they immediately knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. They no longer dared to resist. This was the majesty of Xiantian sect. Don't you know that even the heavenly court in the immortal realm is under the control of my Xiantian sect? Even the Jade Emperor is a member of my Xiantian sect? With a complacent mind, Lin Zhongxuan left Chunyang Palace. Accompanying him was naturally a group of dejected Xiantian sect disciples. After all, they had been working in the sect for many years. They knew what to do and what not to do. They were not masters who only focused on cultivation. This time they actually made things like this. Who knew how they would be dealt with by Sect Master Wu when they returned? This Grandmaster Lin was really too arrogant. Did he really think that Yang Chun of Chunyang Palace was so easy to bully? Chapter 2171. As soon as the matter was reported to Sect Master Wu's heart skipped a beat. Oh no, I've offended them badly. Chunyang Palace and Yang Chun gave Xiantian sect enough face this time, but the face they took out was directly trampled on the ground by martial ancestor Lin. At the level of Sect Master Wu, although it was not easy to know some of the core secrets when Sect Master Li was in charge of the sect, he could still easily find out some things that were not particularly confidential. He could easily investigate some of Yang Chen's actions in the mortal world. From the Taishaman in the mortal world to Xiantian sect in the spiritual world, doing business with Yang Chun. When were they not swung by Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace? After the meat was cut by the big knife, they still had to be picked by the small knife? It was always Yang Chun who took advantage. When did he suffer a loss? Since Sect Master Wang and Sect Master Li were so tolerant before, there was a reason why they were willing to be slaughtered so painfully when they could obviously kill Chunyang Palace. Divine Perching Jade, Combination Elixir, Marrow Accumulation Elixir, Ganoderma Jade Pill, Limb Regeneration Elixir, all of these were produced by Yang Chun, saving the lives of many disciples in the sect. Now, the feelings that they had accumulated in the past were completely severed. It was almost impossible for them to establish a harmonious relationship like they had in the past. Although everyone knew that the traitorous disciples of Xiantian sect attacked Chunyang Palace, the situation could still be maintained before they openly fell out. If the compensation was sufficient this time, this matter might not be impossible to get over. Everyone understood that there was no eternal hatred in this world, only eternal interests, especially between the sect. Weren't the Tao sects and demon sects irreconcilable in the past? Weren't they cooperating happily now? However, Lin Zhongxuan's brainless decision had completely destroyed all of this. Even if the Zhao family erased Chunyang Palace after the incident, Xiantian sect would never be able to get rid of the reputation of treachery. At this time, Sect Master Wu looked at Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan as if he was looking at a plague. These two guys couldn't do anything right. Even if it was to help him up the stage, he shouldn't have killed a core elder on the spot. Right now, everyone in the sect was in danger, and Sect Master Wu was still badly battered. He didn't expect the outside world to play such a trick on him. Once he thought about how he would no longer be able to buy the Dwelling Divine Jade and Yang Chen's pills at a reasonable price in the future, Sect Master Wu felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. Lin Zhongxuan thought that he had saved a lot of money this time. But if he really wanted to buy things from Yang Chen, it would be strange if he didn't get slaughtered. Now, Sect Master Wu only hoped that everything would go smoothly in the future, and that he would no longer need to beg Yang Chen. Otherwise, the two grandmasters, Zhou Yusheng and Lin Zhongxuan, would definitely not show up. However, when the time came, the one who would suffer the consequences would be none other than him. It wasn't all bad news. There was also good news. The Mysterious Heaven sect sent a representative to discuss with the other super sect members. They all agreed to immediately send these grandmasters from the lower realm to the core of the trial grounds to investigate. In this regard, they were in the same boat and shared a common enemy. These grandmasters from the lower realm, they were really ancestors, not to mention carefully serving them. They didn't dare to have any harsh words. They couldn't say or scold them, which was simply worrying. There were a few who were good and followed the rules, but their identities were there. Even the various sect masters felt awkward. It was indeed a good thing to let them hurry to the trial grounds to investigate and not always hang around in the sect. Even if everything went smoothly, it still took 3 years to coordinate and gather together. When they saw these lower realm experts enter the core of the trial grounds with the help of the Zhao family's manor, the various sect masters finally let out a sigh of relief. Sect Master Wu was looked at by several other sect masters who were taking pleasure in his misfortune. It couldn't be helped. The super-strong Grandmaster Lin personally came to force Chunyang Palace to give up the compensation had long been spread out, and everyone knew about it. It wasn't that Chunyang Palace wasn't loyal. It was Grandmaster Lin himself who spread the news. How could such a great thing that the Spiritual Realm sect was unheard of? No matter what, it had to be publicized to everyone in the world. In the face of the various sects' gazes that contained many meanings, Sect Master Wu had the heart to die. In his life, ever since he became the sect master of the mortal world's Taishaman, he had never been looked at like this. In the past 3 years, Sect Master Wu's life was even more miserable than Emperor Xian of Han, who was ordered by the Emperor by Cao Cao. The dignified number 1 Dao sect, Mysterious Heaven sect, had completely become a laughingstock. Not to mention the loss of reputation. The 2 grandmasters in the sect were messing around, and factions were set up. Originally, there were many disciples who were dissatisfied, and now there were even more complaints. In the past few years, Mysterious Heaven sect's reputation had completely fallen to the bottom. Not to mention the cohesion of the sect. It was already very good that more than half of the disciples did not betray the sect. Now that the God of Plagues was finally sent away, Sect Master Wu could breathe a sigh of relief and then free up his hands to reorganize the internal affairs of Mysterious Heaven sect. In all fairness, Sect Master Wu was definitely one of the top 10 people who wanted Mysterious Heaven sect to prosper. He would never watch Mysterious Heaven sect continue to fall. Without the 2 grandmasters holding him back and blindly commanding him, Sect Master Wu was confident that he would lead Mysterious Heaven sect back on the right track within a few years. In terms of talent, cultivation, and management ability of the sect, Sect Master Wu believed that he was not inferior to Sect Master Li. Li Hiyu could become the sect master because he caught a good opportunity. Sect Master Wu's qualifications were not enough. Now, all of this was not a problem. Sect Master Wu could not be worse than Sect Master Li. The internal conflicts of the sect could sometimes be transferred to the outside. That was what Sect Master Wu did. When he succeeded as the sect master, there were disciples who reported that they had made substantial progress in investigating the Zhao family side branch. This was the task that Sect Master Li had ordered to investigate Tong Bao Pavilion, Shabby Pavilion, and Lost Star Pavilion. It was also Yang Chun who reminded Sect Master Li. But now that Sect Master Li was in seclusion, the disciples who had the results of the investigation reported the results to the new sect master. Under the full investigation of Mysterious Heaven sect, These shops with the word pavilion quickly surfaced one by one. Many of them were removed from suspicion under secret investigations, but there was a group that found more things. It could be determined that these shops were the foundation of Zhao family's side branch in the spiritual realm, and also a tool for the Zhao family to make money. Someone immediately sent him a pillow when he was sleepy. This was Sect Master Wu's current feeling. In particular, this pillow was arranged by the former sect masterly long ago, but he got lucky, which made him even happier. Why was Sect Masterly recognized by most of the sect in the spiritual realm? Wasn't it because he took the lead in dealing with the Zhao family? Now with this information, Sect Master Wu could also do the same as Sect Masterly. The Zhao family had not made any moves in recent years and seemed to be recuperating. On the other hand, Sect Master Wu was anxious to show his ability to deal with the Zhao family and carried out a big sweep of the Zhao family's hidden forces in the spiritual realm.